The shale revolution arrived in Texas in a big way. Rick Perry is simply the right man for the job, and it's an honor for me to support his nomination to be the third Texan to head the Department of Energy. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Cornyn. Senator Manchin.
Member Murkowski and Ranking Member Cantwell and all my colleagues, Senator Cornyn, and to Governor Perry and to his lovely wife Anita, to their daughter Sydney, and son-in-law Brett and an extended family, and I know your son Griffin was able to be here today, but I was with you in spirit. I know some of you might think it's interesting why I'm sitting here, and I wanted to explain that as a former governor, governors form bonds and friendships unlike any other elected officials I've ever seen. We travel a lot, we work together, we have the same problems. If it's an education problem, if it's a disaster, whatever, we're calling and helping each other all the time. And so I'm here to support my friend, and that's one thing we do to develop is friendships, as Senator Hoeven knows so well, and Senator Rich also. The President-elect's nominee for the Secretary of Energy, Governor Rick Perry. He's the longest-serving governor in the history of Texas, as Senator Cornyn has said, 12th largest economy in the world, and is uniquely qualified to hold this position. For many years, we have been friends, and I know Rick understands how to work across the aisle in a bipartisan way to get things done. I've seen that firsthand. I was honored to call him my colleague, and Senator King understands, and our colleagues as governors, you know, you become friends, become part of your family. And in my tenure as governor of the state of West Virginia. Let me explain how Rick and I first met. It was the year of 2005. Katrina, it was a weekend of Katrina. And we were at a Southern Governors Conference. And we were sitting there, and I had not met Governor Perry before, but we meet 2 or 3 times a year, and really get to know each other. And we're sitting there, and Governor Blanco from Louisiana could not be there because she was told that the hurricane was going to have a devastating impact on her state. So Rick and I were, that weekend, we're talking back and forth, and we're watching the weather reports and what was going to happen, and, you know, different precautions as governors you want to take to protect all your citizens, to keep them out of harm's way the best you can. I'll never forget the last day we were leaving. Rick had to get back. I had to get back to West Virginia. Rick was going back to Texas. I said, Rick, do you think the hurricane is, what you heard, is it going to affect you? He said, Joey, I just talked to people in Texas, and we think we're going to be spared. We're going to be missed by this hurricane. And it was a blessing. Well, lo and behold, within the next week, did Rick ever have a wide awakening? Because then, with the devastation that hit, over 250,000 people, I think, moved in immediately to Texas. Texas got overwhelmed at that time, and they didn't have support. And we were waiting for someone to kind of direct us. Well, as governors, we took our own initiative. We're all commanders-in-chief of our National Guard. And I said, Rick, what can we do? He says, I need some help here. We sent C-130s. We sent 1,200 soldiers to help him, to move in supplies, to help FEMA move supplies, to help move people out because they had nowhere to go. And we moved them into West Virginia, and it was just a collaboration of how government should work and how we all should be working together. So I watched him under that and really tough situation. People were depending on Rick to step to the table, and he did. He took care of them, never missed a beat. And we all reached out to help each other. So throughout those challenging times, Governor Perry's resourcefulness and managerial skills were on display. Someone says, are you ready for these jobs? Well, no one gave us a manual when we became governor. We didn't know everything that it entailed. We had to learn while we were there. And I want to tell you one thing, you have to get up to speed quick. Senator Murkowski, I know you know from your family exactly what we're talking about. This is, you know, so I have no doubt that Rick is going to not only do the job, he's going to excel at the job. That is evident in Rick's achievements in diversifying the Texas energy portfolio, which is remarkable as the #1 producer of crude oil and natural gas in the nation. The state of Texas has done a heavy lifting like West Virginia and so many of your states. People don't ask for much. They'll go and do the heavy work, and they'll continue to provide for this country and make us the superpower we are with the greatest economy in the world. I believe that Rick has the experience and the tenacity to serve in this cabinet. Texas is the largest producer of crude oil, natural gas, and electricity in the nation. During his tenure, as Senator Cornyn has noted and knows him from on the campaign trail, and that's when you really learn people well too, through 2000 and 2013, air quality in Texas significantly improved with major reductions in pollutions like ozone, nitrogen oxides, sulfur dioxide, despite very strong population growth. And I'm going to let him talk to you about the growth we've had in Texas. Governor Perry cultivated wind energy development in the state of Texas, which is now the leader, and also solar coming on so strong. So when we talk about an all-in energy policy, everything we can to have dependable, reliable, and affordable energy and do it as clean as humanly possible. To hopefully the rest of the world will take the lead. I believe that he possesses, and all of the above, energy policy that'll find the balance between the economy and the environment, which is so important. I need to tell any of you all sitting there and working with you every day, finding that balance is very difficult, very difficult. But we try. I believe that Rick will be someone to work with you. We enjoyed very much Secretary Ernie Moniz. He's a great man, and he worked across the aisle very well. I think you're going to find that reassurance for Rick Perry. I look forward to Rick serving. I think he's going to do a great job for not only the Department of Energy, but for all of us in America. So with that, I'm proud to support my friend, my colleague, Rick Perry.
Thank you, Senator Manchin. We appreciate it. Appreciate the comments of both of you, gentlemen. Thank you for providing this introduction for Governor Perry. And now at this time, I would ask you, Governor Perry, to please come forward. And before asking for your opening statement, I'm going to administer the oath, which is customary in hearings such as this one, and then I'm going to ask you the customary 3 questions. So at this time, if you could raise your hand. The rules of the committee, which apply to all nominees, require that they be sworn in connection with their testimony. Raising your right hand, do you solemnly swear that the testimony you are about to give to the Senate Committee on Energy and Natural Resources shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. You may go ahead and be seated. Before you begin your statement, I'm going to ask you 3 questions addressed to each nominee before this committee. The first is, will you be available to appear before this committee and congressional committees to represent departmental positions and respond to issues of concern to the Congress?
I will, Senator.
And are you aware of any personal holdings, investments, or interests that could constitute a conflict or create an appearance of such a conflict should you be confirmed and assume the office to which you will be nominated by the President? And are you involved or do you have any assets held in blind trusts?
I do not, Senator.
Then thank you, Governor Perry. You may proceed with your statement. Is your mic not on?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Already the committee is being wonderfully helpful and supportive here.
And I have found nothing but that during my time in each of your offices, so I want to thank you for your hospitality. But Chairwoman Murkowski and I want to say to each of you my great thanks. Ranking Member Cantwell, thank you for your wisdom, your interaction. All the distinguished members of this committee, thank you for allowing me to come in and share with you, to listen to your concerns. It is a real honor for me to be here, to be President-elect Trump's nominee for the Secretary of Energy. As I said, this process has been extremely informative and beneficial for me. The individual discussions that we've had in your offices and in some cases over the phone afterwards have been most important. And I will suggest the most important aspect of this process for me. I especially want to thank Senator Murkowski, Senator Cantwell again. You both spoke passionately and very frankly about the priorities of this country and for the things that affect energy policy. You may be from different political parties, but as I noted during those meetings, what you have in common, and both of you talked passionately about energy development, about the safety, about the reliability of nuclear stockpile, the vital role of our national labs, critical importance of grid security, unique situations in each of your states. And I might add, both of them talked very passionately about those issues without the benefit of notes. You know well the challenges and the issues that are going to be facing the Secretary of Energy if I'm confirmed. Obviously, I look forward to working with each one of you. Before I go further, I want to recognize an individual that's already been recognized, but I want to add my very strong love and support to an individual that's been my greatest advocate, and a person who's been with me every step of the way since a piano recital, Senator Franken, back in the late 1950s. You didn't know I was a pianist. I wanted to bring that to your attention, sir. And that's obviously my wife, Anita. We've had quite a journey. I grew up on a dryland cotton farm 16 miles from the closest place to the post office, in a house that had just received electrification, received power from the Rural Electrification Agency, all the way to today, as I'm being considered as the Secretary of Energy. With us today is also one of our pride and joys. That's our daughter, and her new husband, a naval officer, Brett Harrison. I arrive at this appointment with 3 decades of experience in elected office. I was a state representative. I was the agriculture commissioner. I was a lieutenant governor, and for 14 years, the governor of the state of Texas. And during my 3.5 terms as governor, a state that created 2.2 million jobs. We added more people to our population rolls than any other state during that period of time. If it were a standalone country, it would be the 12th largest economy in the world. We're also the nation's leading energy-producing state, not just in terms of oil and gas, as Senator Cornyn shared with you, but also wind energy. I have firsthand experience with the shale energy boom that revolutionized American energy with the state-led cleanup efforts to improve our environment as well. As governor, I also learned that the management skills that you gain, as Senator Manchin shared with you, Senator King, you certainly know this, and Senator Hoeven as well, of being a governor. I have the executive experience necessary for leading an organization as large as the Department of Energy. From this experience, I learned how important energy is to the American economy and the great responsibility that we have to take care of what we've been given to protect our citizens. I'm also, or I should say, if I'm so fortunate as to be confirmed, this experience will inform my priorities at the department. I'm committed to keeping Americans safe. Nuclear security is the largest portion of the Department of Energy's portfolio, its budget, if you will. I'll be focused on continuing to protect and modernize the nation's nuclear stockpile. As a former Air Force pilot during the days of the Cold War, I understand the deterrent value of our nuclear weapon system and the vital role that they play in keeping the peace. Another aspect of security is ensuring the reliability of our electric grid against cybersecurity attacks. I'm committed to undertaking enhanced security measures where necessary and assisting with recovery efforts if those are required so that Americans can depend on a stable source of power. I'll draw upon my years of experience as governor of a coastal state in organizing emergency response personnel to handle disasters effectively and efficiently. If confirmed, I will advocate and promote energy in all forms, and that certainly includes our renewables. America's been blessed with vast natural resources and the technology to utilize them. I'm committed to helping provide stable, reliable, affordable, and secure sources of American energy. And America First energy strategy is important to create jobs and to grow the economy. I'm a major proponent of maintaining American leadership in the area of scientific inquiry. I support the academic and the government mission of basic research, even when you may not see the results of that for a generation. Our scientists and our labs are the envy of the world. I look forward to visiting those labs this year, and if confirmed, learning even more about the unique work that they do. I have a strong record of aggressively courting leading scientific minds to bring innovation and job creation to my home state. Furthermore, I understand and am committed to the vital role of the Department of Energy that it maintains in environmental cleanup, specifically cleaning up nuclear waste that is the legacy of the Cold War. I have experience of dealing with the difficult challenges of transporting and storing low-level waste in my home state of Texas. I know this is a daunting task. You got 35 states that temporarily are housing waste from various nuclear programs. I look forward to working with the members of the committee to address the concerns many of you are hearing back home about nuclear waste facilities. In summary, I'm committed to modernizing our nuclear stockpile, promoting and developing American energy in all forms, advancing the department's critical science and technology mission, and carefully disposing of nuclear waste. Madam Chair, if I may, in my just limited time I have left, I have a couple of other issues that I'd like to touch upon. I have learned a great deal about the important work being done every day by the outstanding men and women of the Department of Energy. I've spoken several times to Secretary Moniz about the operation. I've spoken to his predecessors. If confirmed, my desire is to lead this agency in a thoughtful manner, surrounding myself with the expertise on the core functions of the department. My past statements, made over 5 years ago about abolishing the Department of Energy, do not reflect my current thinking. In fact, after being briefed on so many of the vital functions of the Department of Energy, I regret recommending its elimination. If confirmed, I will enter this role excited and passionate about advocating and advancing the core missions of the DOE, drawing greater attention to the vital role played by the agency and the hard-working men and women who dedicate themselves in pursuit of these missions. Second, let me speak to the issue of climate change. I believe the climate is changing. I believe some of it is naturally occurring, but some of it is caused by man-made activity. The question is how we address it in a thoughtful way that doesn't compromise economic growth. It affects the affordability of energy or American jobs. In Texas, we've got a record of taking action to address environmental challenges, including climate change. And despite this fast-growing population, and I might add one of the largest petrochemical refining industries in the world, we saw our climate and our air improve during that period of time. We reduced carbon output by 17%, sulfur dioxide by 56%, nitrogen oxide by 66%. We decommissioned 137 of these older, dirty, burning plants, Senator. I mean, we did it by using incentives to move to new technology, clean technology, such as clean coal and carbon capture and underground storage. In Houston, there's a $1 billion Petronova plant that's going to be opening soon using carbon capture sequestration. We're also using that carbon that's then injected into wells for secondary and tertiary recovery operations. I signed a law into place to retrofit some 15,000 engines under the Texas Emissions Reduction Plan, and we provided incentives for energy efficiencies. Our willingness to develop natural gas and tap shale formations help not only Texas reduce its carbon footprint, but other states and Mexico as well. But we truly advocated an all of the above strategy, reducing carbon emissions, not just through development of cleaner fossil fuels, but through the development of renewable resources as well. During my time as governor, Texas took the national lead in wind energy development, now produces more wind, as Senator Cornyn reminded you of, than 5 countries. When it comes to climate change, I'm committed to making decisions based on sound science that also take into account the economic impact. We need an energy policy for the 21st century that is focused on promoting American energy in all forms. I am committed to working with this committee and the incoming administration to do just that. Senators, this is an historic time for America and for the energy sector, and I would be honored to be a part of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor Perry. And I appreciate that you addressed, I know, at least 2 matters of concern based on statements that you had made previously, and I'm sure that there will be further questions directed to that. But I do think it's also very important to recognize the work that has gone forward within the state of Texas as you have worked to not only embrace a growing population, provide for jobs and economic opportunity, but at the same time working to address the issue of emissions and how you can bring on additional energy sources, both the traditional and our renewables. So I think it's a good story and a story worth repeating. I want to focus my first round of questions on some Alaska-specific issues and appreciate your attention to them. Senator Cantwell mentioned that I am oft heard stating that America is an Arctic nation. We are an Arctic nation because of where Alaska sits, and we are proud that we are an Arctic nation. We have been we've been struggling a little bit because there are some who I think view the Arctic as something in isolation, something that is frozen in time, almost a snow globe that should sit on the shelf and we just shouldn't touch it. But as Senator King knows, co-chairman of the Arctic Caucus with me, it is a very, very dynamic part of the world and a very dynamic part of our country. But understanding what is happening in the Arctic is imperative. Knowing the science, understanding the science is an imperative, and we see much of this come out of the Department of Energy. We also recognize that there are incredible resources in the Arctic, certainly that could enhance this country's energy production if we are able to access them. So the commitment that I am seeking from you today is one where you would agree to work with me as well as the people of Alaska and really the country as an Arctic nation to bring industry, to bring science, to bring our local communities together to ensure that the U.S. can continue to be a leader in the Arctic as it relates to our energy production, as it relates to our science, as it relates to understanding all that is in front of us as an Arctic nation.
Senator, you have my commitment. Senator, you have my commitment, as do the members of the committee, to focus on the development of various regions. Obviously, you and I had a very lengthy conversation about the challenges that Alaska and the Native Alaskans face from the standpoint of both the economic impact, the environmental impact. It is a unique area of our country. The times I have visited there and the times I will visit in the future will help develop even better an understanding of the not only the challenges but the opportunities. And I look at this if I'm so fortunate as to be confirmed as Secretary of Energy, to not only use the agency and the vast, the brilliance of our national labs. One of the things since 2012 in particular, when I started spending time understanding our national labs, Texas A&M University, which is my home state, was brought into a competition to operate Sandia Labs. At that particular point in time, I steeped myself in really finding out about these laboratories and the men and women that are in those laboratories, the extraordinary individuals, the technology side and the science side of the Department of Energy. There are a fascinatingly large number of opportunities that we have on the economic side to make people's quality of life in your home state, for instance, better by bringing technologies that we may have an idea about today and some that we haven't even dreamed up yet to the table, to commercialization, to affect your state and this nation as a whole. So my record as governor of Texas has been one to not only think outside of the box, do some things that people might not necessarily have associated with a Republican governor, but to do it in a way that both sides of the aisle and people who really don't much give a tinker's damn about either political party, but want to see results. And that's what I will commit to you, to find those results that will have a positive impact on your citizens of Alaska and of this country.
I appreciate that commitment, and I would commend to you that we can be that living laboratory. As wonderful as our national labs are, we have some extraordinary individuals with a PhD in Arctic living, individuals that have lived there, their families have been there for millennia, and relying on the indigenous peoples as well as we work with our brilliant scientists in the labs and around the country is very important. But I look forward to spending more time with you speaking about these issues that are so pertinent to the development and the sustainability of an Arctic environment. Senator Cantwell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Governor Perry, I like several things that you had to say. There was one thing I definitely want to bring up that's very concerning, and that is that you said as it relates to energy strategy, we cannot, as you said, quote, compromise economic growth. Well, I guarantee you today we are compromising economic growth because of our overdependence on fossil fuel. It is having an impact on the natural resources economy in my state. It's having an effect on shellfish and the ability to seed. It's having an effect on the two most devastating fire seasons our state has had in the history of our state, burning up just in one Indian reservation over $2 billion worth of timber. We have requested, my colleague Senator Collins and I, a GAO report that I expect to be out this year that will tell you exactly how much this is costing the U.S. government. And I don't think the number will be in billions. It is going to be higher than that. So my question is, as you look at this agency, one of the things that I predicated my comments on is the level of science investment that needs to be made to continue to do this transition. The transition team sent around a document to the Department of Energy basically trying to identify DOE responsibilities related to, they said, climate meetings, attending framework conventions on climate change, things of that nature. Juxtaposed to the fact that we're getting hacked by the Russians and the Republicans in the House couldn't bother to pick up a cybersecurity bill and pass it. I'm trying to understand where you as Energy Secretary are going to have priorities. These are two different things. I want to know your commitment to protecting these individuals and the scientific budget that goes along with them, and your willingness to make an investment in the effort of defending us, basically repudiating comments of bring the hacking on, and instead make the commitment to pick up the mantle and defend our nation against Russian attacks?
Senator, that questionnaire that you reference went out before I was ever selected as the nominee to sit before this committee. I didn't approve it. I don't approve of it. I don't need that information. I don't want that information. That is not how I manage. I have a history of working with people to find answers to challenges that face us. My commitment to you and the members of this committee is to obviously not only reach across political aisles, but also to work with the men and women who I have an extraordinary amount of respect for at the Department of Energy, to find the solutions to these many challenges that we have, whether they're on the environment, whether they're economically focused, or otherwise.
Do you plan to protect the science budget related to information on climate?
Your question again, Senator?
Do you plan to protect the science research at DOE related to climate?
I'm going to protect all of the science related to whether it's to the climate or to the other aspects of what we're going to be doing. You ask about cyber, and I will suggest to you DOE has a massive role to play in that. And it's an area that I also have a history with, Senator, of being working with private sector, working with, in my case, state government entities. But the DOE will allow me to go to a new level, if you will, of engagement to find the ways to protect. And I'll be honest with you, Senator, I don't care who it is, what players, whether it's a formal state or whether it is a group that is loosely associated, that if they are trying to penetrate into Americans' lives, whether it's private citizens or whether it's at the highest levels of our government, you will see me engaged in activities at the Department of Energy, working across agencies for that matter, working with the DOD at DARPA and our ARPA-E, with ARPA-I, all of those different agencies. I feel very comfortable that we have in our scientific laboratories, in our private sector operations, in the fertile minds of the men and women at the Department of Energy and the scientific side in particular, the technology and the ability to stop the cyber snooping, or for that matter, the intentions to do harm to Americans by penetrating into our electric grid, for instance.
Yeah, my time has expired, but just to clarify, you will protect the scientists and the science budget related to climate?
Senator, I am going to protect the men and women of the scientific community from anyone that would attack them, no matter what their reason may be at the Department of Energy.
Thank you.
Senator Hoeven, and he will be followed by Senator Heinrich.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Governor Perry, great to see you. Thanks for your willingness to serve, and to Anita and your whole family, great to see you. And of course, you're part of that service as well. Well, thanks so much, and welcome. I appreciate in your opening statement, you talked about all the different types of energy that are produced in Texas, because we need an all of the above energy policy for our country. We need one that is focused on empowering states rather than a federal one-size-fits-all, and I know that you understand that. I also appreciate the fact that you brought up that not only are you a leader in Texas in producing fossil fuels like oil and gas and coal, but that you're also a leader in renewable energy. And my state, actually, we produce 1 million barrels of oil a day. We're second only to Texas in oil production. But we also produce wind and biofuels and other renewables. You talked about that, and I want to commend you on that. And I want to bring up something we talked about when you came in to see me, and that is that technology really is the way forward as we develop these sources of energy, not only to produce more energy more cost effectively and more dependably, but also with better environmental stewardship. And you talked about Petra Nova, a project you're working working on to capture and sequester CO2. We have a project, the Great Plains Synfuel Plant, where we take lignite coal you work with in Texas. We produce synthetic natural gas with that coal. We capture the CO2 and we put it in the oil fields for secondary oil recovery. We want to do more of that. And I know you understand that, and that's why I've asked you to come to North Dakota to see our Energy Environmental Research Center, to see the Bakken. You talked about the shale play, the new technology there. But we have projects to capture CO2, clean coal technology, on the front end, called Alum Cycle. Petronova is an example of that. And Project Tundra to retrofit plants as well. We need you to come out there and help us continue to develop and commercialize that technology. And I'm asking you for your commitment to do that, because it's something that doesn't just benefit our states, it benefits our country. And beyond that, as other countries develop this technology, it really is a global type of solution. So talk about that for a minute and your commitment to help make that happen.
Senator, thank you. You do have my commitment to not only continue to work on those technologies to be commercialized, and I will come to your home state at the first possible moment. I think I'm going to be spending a lot of time traveling to your states over the course of the next.
Well, how about West Virginia? Any chance you'd be going to West Virginia? I'm wondering.
I think West Virginia thought I was an honorary citizen over there for a while over the last few years. I've been to Morgantown lots of times. So, but back to your salient point, Senator. I'm a big believer that one of the reasons that we have a responsibility to fund our basic research, and a lot of times we don't know what the outcome of that's going to be. We hope we know how it's going to turn out, but Senator Reich, it may be a generation down the road on basic research. With our applied research, we have a lot better idea about how it reaches fruition, how it can be commercialized. I saw that as the governor of Texas. We helped create a fund, and again, I don't get confused about the difference between federal government and state government. You and I are both strong supporters of federalism, but my life's experiences are going to affect the way that I operate as the Secretary of Energy, if I am confirmed. And one of those happens to be about investing in the technology that can be commercialized to improve people's quality of life. One of the things that Senator Sanders and I talked about in his office was, you know, someday I hope that he and I and a host of other individuals can stand up together with technology that came out of the Department of Energy that we're able to sell to the Chinese to start making the environment in China better. I mean, that's the potential that's there. My home state and your home state were virtually changed in a life-changing way with hydraulic fracturing. And that technology had its genesis in the Department of Energy. So the concept of using that agency, whether it's on cybersecurity, whether it's on new ways to use the natural resources that we have, and the management of that. I mean, one of the things that I bring to you is my 14 years of managing that 12th largest economy in the world from the standpoint of efficiently and effectively putting programs in place and seeing a result of that action. And that's my commitment, Senator, is that on a daily basis, I will have men and women who I trust, who have the expertise and have the authority to be able to implement these programs that can affect the citizens, not just your state, but hopefully the citizens of this world.
Thank you, Governor. I think that's a good description of the opportunity that we have, and I look forward to working with you.
Governor, welcome. As I see it, one of the most critical jobs at DOE is the administrator of the National Nuclear Safety Administration. And I have been deeply concerned about press reports which indicate that this key leadership post, literally the steward of our stockpile, might be vacant during the presidential transition. Has the question of interim leadership at NNSA been resolved?
Senator, thank you. I, like you, have concern about an orderly transition. The nuclear stockpile in our country is a bit different than almost anything else that's out there. So having men and women in place and a structure in place to give confidence and assurity, predictability to the people of this country and to the men and women of this committee is very important. That position obviously is one that has presidential nomination oversight. I have sat down with the General Potts, and had a good conversation with him, and have sent the message that it would certainly be my desire to have that continuity. It is in the President-elect's office now, and hopefully we will see that type of continuity in those very important places.
I want to thank you for your efforts on that. I think it would serve the new administration well. We have about 25 hours and 20 minutes to figure this thing out. And NNSA, other than, unlike other agencies, because of the way the law was written by my predecessor, Senator Pete Domenici, you have to appoint those positions from people who have served 90 of the last 365 days. So the pool is limited, and I think, you know, we all want to see DOE succeed. We all want to see NNSA succeed.
Yes, sir.
So thank you for your efforts on that. 2016, warmest year our planet has experienced in human history. It's the third year in a row to break that dubious record. And you stated in your testimony that you believe, quote, believe the climate is changing, end quote. This should be about belief. In my view, it should be about data. It should be about evidence. It should be about peer-reviewed scientific results. And stepping back from just climate, I just want to ask you broadly, will you commit to using science as your guide when making policy at DOE?
Senator, my record as the governor of your neighboring state clearly shows that that's the case. I'll give you a couple of examples. Relying upon data when people's lives are in jeopardy was one of the things that I became very well known for. And I want to speak about hurricanes and the effect that they can have upon. At 5 o'clock one morning, I received a phone call that a particular storm's track was going to go directly up the Houston Ship Channel as a Category 5 storm.
I remember.
And the devastation was massive. We're talking about over 1 million people dead, not 1 million people impacted, 1 million people dead. Those are sobering moments in an individual's life. At that particular point in time, we started a massive evacuation of Harris County in the Houston area. That data happened to be, and fortunately, wrong for that particular storm. But the point is, I made decisions based on the most sound science that I could find.
I want to thank you, and I know the chair is going to cut me off if I don't use my time wisely here, but I want to say on behalf of the nearly 25,000 New Mexicans who work at Sandia and Los Alamos, work at WIP, at NNSA and DOE, I want to thank you for your statement as well of regret for calling for the elimination of DOE. And I'm going to make it here for the second round, and we'll get to some
Yes,
of
sir.
those other issues
Yes,
that
sir. Thank
I'm
you,
looking forward to hearing from you from.
Thank you, Senator Heinrich. Senator Brasso.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Governor Perry, congratulations again. Thanks so much for coming to visit and listening to my concerns about the department. I'd like to ask you about the department's so-called barters or transfers that we talked about of excess uranium, which is certainly a component within the Department of Energy. These are the transactions in which the department trades some of its excess uranium for services that the department gets for contractors, and we've seen a lot of this under the Obama administration. The department uses this uranium because it refused to ask Congress for the appropriations to pay for the contractors. But in the process, the department has in the past violated a number of federal laws. It's also flooded the market with tens of millions of pounds of uranium. So as a result, the people out there producing the uranium in Wyoming, in Texas, in other states, have ended up laying off workers, canceling projects. So, if confirmed, will you consider suspending the department's so-called barters of excess uranium until you can at least review the policy?
Senator, I will commit to you that we will follow the law. And as you clearly demonstrated to me in our office, at this particular point in time, there's some real question on whether the law is being followed. I will spend the time becoming very familiar, not only with the law, but the impact that it's happening. You made reference to one of the reasons, from your perspective, that it is happening is because of the budgetary. And again, during my 30 years of public service, both as a young state representative on the Appropriations Committee and then obviously as the governor of Texas who had to put forward a budget every 2 years, I understand the budgetary process rather well and the negotiations that go on and the prioritization that goes on. So hopefully you will see that type of activity from the Department of Energy from the standpoint of very appropriately engaged budgetary processes where you don't have to see programs that are important to you, the members of this agency, being affected because of bad management or because of budgetary negotiations that maybe weren't the smoothest that we would hope for.
Well, and I would appreciate as part of that commitment, you would meet with the America's uranium producers and essentially come up with a long-term management plan of excess uranium prior to authorizing any additional barters. So
Senator, we will work very closely with you and the members of the committee to do just that.
Thank you very much. I want to turn to liquefied natural gas, LNG. We talked about that, certainly a lot of it from Wyoming, a lot with Texas. Since 2010, the department's permitting process for LNG exports has been, I would say, unpredictable. Last Congress, some of us here on this committee, bipartisan way, including Senator Heinrich, who was just asking questions, he and I and others introduced legislation to expedite the department's permitting process. This committee, the entire Senate, passed legislation, overwhelming bipartisan support. The House passed a nearly identical piece of legislation with bipartisan support. So if confirmed, will you commit to acting on the pending LNG export applications, because they're all piled up there, and do it in a timely manner?
Senator, I will follow the laws. I will follow the clear instruction that I see as Congress goes forward. Obviously, working with the administration, my understanding, having conversations with President-elect Trump, is that he truly is an all-of-the-above supporter of American energy, and to support, develop, and promote that energy resource, liquefied natural gas being one of those.
Well, we are going to reintroduce the legislation, and I would hope that you would work with me and with others in a bipartisan way, so not just to ensure that you, but your successors also, those that come after you, act on LNG export applications in a timely manner, because we have such an abundance of energy, as we've talked in this country. Putin uses energy as a weapon, a geopolitical weapon. We are an energy force in this country, and I believe that we should be acting like the international force that we are with energy. So I could ask your commitment to help with legislation so that your successors would also follow the law.
I will be available to work with you on any given day, sir.
Thank you. Congratulations again. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Brasso. Senator Cortez Masto.
Thank you. Governor Perry, congratulations on your nomination. Welcome to your family, to the committee. And thank you for taking the time to sit with me and talk with me. And I suspect you know what the first question is going to be right out of the gate. So this year, Senator Heller and I introduced the Nuclear Waste Informed Consent Act. And that requires the Secretary of Energy to receive consent from any state considered for a high-level nuclear waste repository before proceeding with development. And in 2011, the presidential debate in Las Vegas, you came out in favor of consent-based siting in regards to Yucca Mountain, arguing that if Nevada did not want it, and I will tell you right now, 58% do not want it, then they should not have it, and that the people of Nevada ought to have their final say. Do you still support consent-based siting for Yucca Mountain?
Senator, as you know, in 2011, I was a sitting governor, and I made a statement about federalism. I still believe in it strongly. I think it's important for the Secretary of Energy, and my role, if I'm fortunate to be confirmed, to have that good working relationship with as many governors as I can, the citizens of those states. I happen to also be a great believer of following the statutes and laws. So if you pass such, not only will I salute it, I will happily salute it.
Well, let me ask you this, because I know you have a relationship with our governor, who just this week came out in his State of the State, emphatically stating that any attempt to resurrect the ill-conceived Yucca Mountain project will be met with relentless opposition and maximum resources. Also saying that continuing on a path that seeks to force this unsafe and unwanted project on Nevada is a waste of time and money, and only gets the country further away from solving this nuclear waste problem. And in fact, on May 8th, 2014, on Meet the Press, you criticized a one-size-fits-all policy of Washington, D.C. And that's what we have here. So can you commit that you will continue to work with the governor, with the people of the state of Nevada, with everyone who has concerns about the safety and health of siting a high-level nuclear waste at Yucca Mountain, and particularly those in southern Nevada who will be harmed by it, who have concerns about it, including those who live in Summerlin?
Senator, I am very aware that this is an issue that this country has been flummoxed by for 30 years. And we have spent billions of dollars on this issue. And after I was asked to serve as the Secretary of Energy, I thought it would probably be wise to pick up the phone or meet face-to-face with the two senators from Nevada and the governor, as you know, that I am personal friends with, and to make sure that, you all were still pretty much on the same page of the hymn book. And I know it doesn't surprise you at all. You are. And so I respect that position. I understand where you all are coming from. I'm going to work very closely with you and the members of this committee to find the answers to these challenges that we have. And hopefully this is the beginning of seeing real movement, real management of an issue that I think no longer can sit and be used as a political football, one that must be addressed. And I think we can find a solution both in the interim and the long term of our nuclear waste.
Well, Governor, and I appreciate your comments, and I'm going to hold you to your word, because here today you said you rely on data when people's lives are at stake, and that you make decisions based on sound science. And I'm hoping in this instance you're going to the same thing. I know my time is, I'm running out here, but I look forward to another round to ask additional questions. But thank you for your comments.
Thank you. Senator Cassidy.
Hey, Governor, how are you?
Fine, Doctor.
Listen, this is something that pertains to both our states, and and there's a confluence. We have the Obama administration and Breitbart News on the same page, so I want to ask your opinion on this. There's something in Louisiana called the Lake Charles methanol plant, and the administration just approved some loan guarantees. About half the project, this is $1.8 billion, I think, in private capital. And what this does, it takes petcoke, and it takes from the petcoke everything, including carbon dioxide, as opposed to releasing the carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. It catches it, sends it to East Texas for enhanced oil recovery. And using kind of, we know how it works technology, but bringing it to scale. Now, your administration will be taking over, but again, this is something both the right and the left have seemed to have embraced. Your thoughts on, knowing that you may not know particulars, but in concept, the idea that there'd be a loan guarantee that would both create American jobs, but also capture carbon dioxide, enhance oil recovery.
Senator, thank you for giving me the opportunity to share with you that I don't know the deep particulars of this. On the surface, it appears to make sense. Your observation that it's both supported by both sides of the aisle would seem to make that a relatively easy decision to continue to go forward with. With that said, I've got that history of investing, working with the members of the legislature in the case of my time as the Texas governor, the speaker, the lieutenant governor, a panel of experts that referred the projects to us for approval or not. And that history, I hope, will give you comfort that I'm a big believer that we have a role to play, both in basic research, obviously, but also in that applied research to bring new technologies, new commercialization, new economic development opportunities to this country. And so you have my commitment to come, take a look at that project, get to know it firsthand. But my instinct is that that's the type of programs that the Department of Energy should be engaged with that have really concrete, successful end results.
Let me ask you this, because I'm sorry I was in another hearing. So I understand you've been speaking about Texas's record of both expanding jobs as well as decreasing emissions. One thing my office has been looking at is this direct relationship between worldwide manufacturing moving to China and a worldwide growth in emissions. As one example, since 2004 to 2013, China's share of global manufacturing has risen from 1/12 to 1/4, and gone from being the 19th emitter of greenhouse gases to number 1. I've told folks if President Trump is successful at returning manufacturing to the United States, where we have environmental standards, perhaps capturing greenhouse gases, certainly SOx and NOx, which the Chinese don't seem to bother with, as well as using clean natural gas, nuclear, and renewables, as opposed to their electricity feedstock being coal, will have more of an impact upon global greenhouse gas emissions than any other arrangement. Knowing that you commented on that previously, but I'm sorry I wasn't here, just like your thoughts on that.
Yes, sir. Senator, you know I'm a bit of a competitor. Governor Jerry Brown used to not be happy with me showing up in California to recruit businesses from California to Texas, and maybe I might have showed up in one of your states as well. The competition's a good thing. And I think the competition that can occur with the United States putting tax and regulatory policies into place to bring manufacturing back on shore is a good thing. I also think it will have the added benefit, Senator, of forcing China to make some changes in how they do their business. As I said earlier about taking one of or a number of the senators here to sell technology to China. I mean, all of that makes ultimate good sense to me, that we not only we retrieve that back into the United States, because we know we can. This isn't theory, this isn't talk. I've seen the 12th largest economy in the world lower carbon dioxide emissions by 17%, SOx by 66%, and NOx by 58%. That's real reductions that make a difference in the environment of the world. And if we could see that type of technology and that type of effort, that type of competitive pressure, if you will, to places like China, then we have served the citizens of this world well.
Thank you. I yield back.
Thank you. Senator Stabenow.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and welcome and congratulations, Governor Perry, and welcome to your family as well. I enjoyed a chance to talk with you in my office about basic research and applied research on a number of different fronts, and I appreciated what you said then as well as what you're saying now in terms of supporting both efforts to bring these new technologies to commercialization as well as doing basic research. And I should tell you, in talking to the presidents at universities in Michigan, they've indicated that that your universities in Texas have indicated your support for these important efforts in basic research and so on. So a couple of things. I talked with you about the facility for rare isotope beams at Michigan State University, a 10-year construction project that's going to end up with the world's most powerful radioactive beam facility that will advance new national defense and environmental technology as well as medical technologies. We need to have your continued support for that. We're in the middle of 10 years of federal funding, federal state funding, and I'd like to ask you if you will support our efforts to bring this to completion.
Senator, as you and I really enjoyed your intellectual engagement and education for me on that particular project. Those are exactly the types of both basic research that then turn into applied research, that then turn into quality of life things that I've had great joy and honor to be involved with while I was governor of Texas. Just a short, we went from no manufacturing of drugs in the state of Texas prior, legal drugs, prior to the start of 2000 to 10 years later, being able to see vaccines manufactured in that state to address pandemic events. Those are the types of things that change the world. And that project of which you share has that same potential to literally change the world in a powerful and a positive way. So the idea that I'm kind of foundationally invested in that type of thinking is there. I look forward to learning more about it, to coming up and visiting this site with you, and then prioritizing both with this committee, with the Congress and the administration, that this is the type of programs that not only we should be engaged with, that can make a difference, a real difference in the quality of life or the economic life, or hopefully both.
Sure.
And as we go forward.
I appreciate that, and let me take another step, which is Department of Energy has played a very important role with manufacturers in public-private partnerships on a number of fronts that are very, very important. I mean, the manufacturing sector accounts for 25% of our energy usage. When we look in transportation, the largest challenge today, no surprise, is trucks, is big vehicles. DOE has a super truck program because we know that in terms of research and technology development, if we really want to decrease carbon emissions and be able to decrease energy use, you have to go where it is, which is in trucks and so on. And there's a very important area where the Office of Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy has funded a number of what we call manufacturing hubs. One is the Institute for Advanced Composite Manufacturing Innovation. And just as we look at things like, I'll give ad for an American company here, Ford with their F-150 series, F-150 truck has gone to aluminum composites, taken 700 pounds out of the weight of the truck, which affects their ability, fuel economy. So these are all incredibly important. And what I'm concerned about is this morning, because I believe you that you support these projects, but my concern is that we're now hearing in the press that the White House and the transition team, using Heritage Foundation budget proposals, are proposing, I would quote, to roll back funding for nuclear physics, advanced scientific computing research to 2008 levels, limiting the Office of Electricity, eliminating the Office of Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy, which I'm just talking about, and scrapping the Office of Fossil Energy, which focuses on technologies to reduce carbon dioxide emissions. And so square this for me. I mean, how do you see your role? You're coming into a new position where we're talking about massive cuts in the kinds of things that you have advocated for, you supported in your role as governor, that are critical to the future of the economy and lowering emissions and creating more efficiencies. If we're going to really do all of that, it needs to be the kinds of things that you've been talking about this morning, and yet we just have a new statement that we're talking about massive cuts in the Energy Department.
Governor Perry, Senator Stebbins' time has expired, so if you can just respond very briefly so that we can get members. Yeah.
Senator, I think all of us, having been in the business that we've been in for the years that we have, know that there are always a lot of statements. Sometimes just because it's on the internet, it's not true. I can't answer whether that's true or not. What I can tell you is that I know that from my perspective, that moving America forward on the supercomputing side, for instance, exascale, is incredibly important for this country's security. And I have no questions at all about whether or not the Trump administration is going to be very supportive of keeping America strong and free. And the technologies that come out of DOE, in many cases, are going to play a very, very important role. I will be an advocate for that. I will be in the room advocating for these types of things. I'm not going to tell you I'm going to be 1,000% successful in that, but I can assure you, people who know me and who have worked with me know my commitment to making sound science, economic science, connected together, because at the end of the day, they make great economic sense and it makes great quality of life sense.
Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Daines.
Governor Kerry, welcome.
Yes, sir.
I have a great view here. You see your beautiful family behind you.
Thank you.
And I will
It's my best day's work, sir.
Yeah. Yes, sir. And I will say, if I was in your chair, I would make sure I had Marcus Luttrell guard my six as well. So it's great to have an American hero here.
And his twin brother, Morgan,
We were
over
wondering
here
about
on
that.
the
Tell
other
you
side,
what, you can tell there are there's a lot of similarities.
just in case.
Anyway, well, I have complete confidence, truly, and you're going to work to restore this balance that I think the American people seek between fossil fuel and renewable energy investments and regulation. They probably would say in Texas, as we'd say in Montana, it's a blend of George Strait and John Denver. That is a melody that we need right now in this nation, and I think that is lacking, frankly, in President Obama's Energy Department, and you'll, I think, restore that balance. So thank you for considering this nomination. Governor Perry, our meeting, we discussed what's going on in a small town in Montana called Colstrip. This plant is the lifeblood of this little town, 2,000 people. 767 of those folks directly are employed by that operation. Colstrip generates enough electricity to power 1.5 million American homes. And as you know, units 1 and 2 in Colstrip are scheduled to close due to environmental litigation, and they're under these job-killing EPA power plan. The other 2 units are also at risk. In fact, there was a study done at the University of Montana. They said that the EPA's power plan would kill 7,000 jobs in our state, $500 million in lost revenues, $140 million in lost tax revenues. And we have a legislature right now that's meeting in Montana that once had a $300 million surplus, and now the governor and legislature are trying to sort out how do you make ends meet because the surplus is gone. And Montana, with the closure of these plants, go from being a net energy exporter to now having to become an energy importer. I think that is a tragedy. And these are regulations coming out of the EPA, but I do believe the Department of Energy under your leadership could do big things to protect its future. We discussed the Crow tribe in Montana. Governor, they have a 35% unemployment rate right now. We lose those coal jobs in that reservation, that unemployment rate goes north of 80%. And this is poverty in rural America. In fact, we had an energy conference here about a year ago, and we had some protesters that came, and they had big signs that said, "Keep it in the ground," referencing coal. And a little 12-year-old Evelyn Oldcoyote, the daughter of the chairman of the tribe, quietly walked up to those protesters and said, "You know, if you keep it in the ground, my people are going to starve." That's what's at stake right now. I'm concerned that if this administration doesn't do anything to protect our existing coal fleet, like Colstrip, many Montanans are going to lose their jobs, our state will lose its tax revenues, and our grid will become less secure and less reliable. I said in our meeting that I would like your personal attention to this issue, and I do appreciate your commitment. I know you're going to be traveling a lot when you were the new Secretary of Energy, but I appreciate your commitment to come visit these communities and see it firsthand. Some of the ways to protect our existing fleet and our base load of energy are to facilitate research that can improve efficiencies at our coal plants and investment in carbon capture utilization and storage technology. I'm concerned that we have a real choice. We can lead in America with this technology, or we will cede this to the Chinese. So the question is, will the DOE support investments in carbon capture to use storage as well as other policies that will keep America's coal fleet running, including Colstrip, so we can continue to use this most valuable resource?
Senator, I look forward to coming back to Montana and spending some quality time with the men and women who are being affected by the decisions that we collectively have made in this city that affect their lives. And you have very eloquently and passionately shared with this committee and with the world the challenges that we have. I remember well a decade and a half ago when there was an individual who traveled the country and I think made a pretty good living giving a speech about peak oil, that we're done. He didn't know what the answer was for the alternative, but he basically said, we're done. But because of technology, came out of the DOE, hydraulic fracturing, the world's been changed. And the world's been given a resource that we've been able to use to help lower the carbon emissions. I'm talking about natural gas. I mean, I will suggest that sometimes we get siloed in our thinking and we go, it's either or. And so, you know, coal's bad, leave it in the ground. The fact is, I am certain, I feel positive that some scientist, some incredibly capable man or woman, either at the DOE or in one of our universities' laboratories, has technology to be able to use coal in a way that is friendly, that is appropriate, and that can keep that little girl's family fed and warm and with a hope for the future. I mean, to me, that's what we're all about. I mean, we signed up for this to make a difference in people's lives. And you have passionately talked about that today. That is my commitment, not just to you, but everyone in this room and on this committee, that I'm going to do everything I can to push the envelope, to think outside of the box, to come up with for the answers to the challenges that we face as a country. That's obviously one of them, and that's a big one. Making sure that the people out at Hanford know that that's being managed, and they're starting to see some things really happen out there, and giving them hope that it's not just going to be another 30 years of the federal government kicking the can down the road. That's what I'm committed to, Senator.
Thank you, Governor.
Thank you, Governor. Senator Hurrell.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and aloha to you, Governor, and your family. Fortunately, you and I have more than 5 minutes when we met, but unfortunately, I only have 5 minutes. So I frame my questions to elicit yes or no responses from you, and I hope that you'll stay with that kind of format. Thank you so much. Governor, you have talked about pursuing an all-of-the-above energy strategy, and as Senator Stabenow just mentioned, and of course I also am aware that just this morning we learned that the Trump transition team intends to propose eliminating the Department of Energy's Office of Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy, Office of Electricity, scrap the Office of Fossil Energy, which focuses on technology to reduce carbon dioxide emissions, and make other massive cuts to your department. It's hard to see how we can pursue an all-of-the-above strategy if so much of the department's all-of-the-above capabilities are eliminated. My question is, do you support these cuts? Yes or no?
Well, Senator, maybe they'll have the same experience I had and forget that they said that. But
we're counting on you. We're counting on you to educate the incoming president. Moving on. So you also stated, having educated yourself, I believe the climate is changing, and that when it comes to climate change, I am committed to making decisions based on sound science, and that also takes into account economic impact. We've heard a lot this morning about making sure that there's a balance between what we need to do with regard to our energy future. I want to ask you, does the economic impact include the costs of not doing anything to address climate change?
absolutely, and that's the reason that
Great.
I took those steps I took as the governor to lower those emissions, Senator.
Thank you. Hawaii, as recently as 2006, relied on imported fossil fuel for 92% of its energy needs. So research, technical assistance, and grants, particularly the State Energy Program from the U.S. Department of Energy, have been instrumental in supporting Hawaii's shift towards locally produced renewable energy. In fact, Hawaii has the most ambitious renewable energy goals in the entire country, because we want to become 100% energy sufficient for electricity by 2045. Can the state of Hawaii count on your continued support from the Department of Energy as it seeks to become energy independent and a leader in the clean energy economy?
Yes.
Thank you.
Finally.
I'm very troubled by recent news reports that the President-elect's transition team has not asked the administrator and deputy administrator of the National Nuclear Security Administration, the NNSA, to extend their service past January 20th. This would be the first time in NNSA's 16-year history that senior leadership will not be kept possibly on for the incoming administration. And I know that you said you wanted a smooth transition, but I'm wondering whether this is an area that we can afford to not keep these people on. So will you commit to a continuity of staff to ensure the Department of Energy's ability to protect and manage our nation's nuclear weapons stockpile?
Senator, I am not concerned that the continuity of protecting our stockpile is going to be in place. As I said earlier, we have sent the message, we have interviewed the existing staff. I don't think anyone would sit here, I hope not anyway, and say you will keep every person that there is over there without interviewing them, having interaction. I will suggest to you my 14 years of governing Texas and being the CEO of that 12th largest economy in the world. I know something about identifying good talent, putting them into place, and I will interview appropriately. But as I shared with Senator Heinrich, the administration has the final decision on a presidential appointment. We're quite comfortable that.
Well, Governor, you managed to get
process
away from a yes or no answer. Thank
Well,
you
that
very
one I
much.
can't give you a yes or no
I
on.
understand. So I also understand that one of the reasons Texas's success in widespread adoption of renewable energy, particularly wind power, is the goals that the state set in 1999. As I mentioned, Hawaii has a similar goal. In 2012, I called for the creation of a national renewable energy standard because setting a goal, as you well know in Texas, gives the private sector certainty to make the kinds of investments needed to meet the goals set by a large state like Texas. Would you support a national renewable energy standard, provided that it can achieve baseline, the achievable baseline standards,
Senator,
a national standard?
you know my position on federalism, and that one size fits all, except in gym socks.
Okay.
Gym doesn't work that well.
That's fair. So if you're going to leave it up to the states, would you at least continue to support states' efforts in these areas?
Absolutely. I will talk to any governor about the wisdom of using their universities, using their private sector, using the Department of Energy where it fits to come up with the technologies that moves forward their state's positions from the standpoint of renewables, where it fits in, where it makes sense. And I'll be happy to give them the roadmap on how to do that.
Thank you. My time is up.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Governor Perry, thank you very much. Welcome to the Energy Committee, and thanks for
Senator.
the patience to go through this process. And thanks as well to your family for being here to support you and your commitment to public service as well. I want to just follow up a little bit on what Senator Daines talked about. I think it's very important that we recognize there are places across the country like Natarita, Colorado, Nucla, Colorado, Meeker, Colorado, Craig, Colorado, Delta, Colorado. These are places, Montrose, Colorado, that a lot of people have or may never hear of, but they're places that have been dramatically affected by our government, places that have been hurt by over-regulations. There are places I visited, coal miners and workers who are out of work because of a government that is faceless to them, but had real consequences at the dinner table. And your job at Department of Energy isn't necessarily to say, here's a coal regulation, here's an oil regulation, here's a wind regulation, because that's not all the Department of Energy does. In fact, there may be no role for the Department of Energy in certain of those areas. But certainly the EPA has affected greatly the western slope of Colorado, eastern plains. Certainly the Department of Interior and our public lands has affected the jobs that can be created as part of our all of the above energy strategy and policy in this country. Even the Department of Agriculture, the Forest Service, has affected our ability to produce affordable energy, whether it's the Pawnee National Grasslands in eastern Colorado or past areas in the western slope. And so I would encourage you, as you sit in the cabinet and you talk about the goals for this country, that when we talk about the impact that this government has, know that one agency has a tremendous impact on the work that another agency is doing, and that it shouldn't just be the EPA that's out against this part of Colorado, the Interior Department that's affecting this area, that they all together layer up in a big way that has real impact on the people of our country. And so thank you for your commitment to work through those tangled webs of government overreach that has put people out of work and hurt people in my state of Colorado. We all recognize the need to protect our great outdoors. We spend a tremendous amount of time in this committee talking about how we can protect our great outdoors, making sure that it's better tomorrow than it is today. But we also have to recognize that those people in Nucla, those people in Natarita, those people in Montrose can't all be trained to install solar panels in Meeker, but they have to do work right at home as well. So just want to talk about, you and I have had a lot of discussions about an all of the above in this country. Colorado is that if you look at the statistics, we're the 7th ranked state in terms of crude oil production. And we're the 6th ranked in natural gas. I think over the past couple of years, we've even been higher than that. We're also the 10th ranked in production and installed wind capacity. We have 14 wind manufacturing facilities. We're at the leading edge of turbine manufacturing, blade manufacturing, tower manufacturing. It's incredible to see what we've done with all the above energy policy in Colorado. That being said, I want to make sure that we keep an all the above energy policy successful. One key component of that is the National Renewable Energy Laboratory in Colorado. This is nearly $1 billion economic impact nationwide on the country. For every $1 that's invested, the Department of Energy secures about $5 additional in private sector funding. It's a facility that's known for its commercialization, taking projects from the lab to the marketplace, ready to be part of our diverse energy sector. After you travel to Hawaii, I'm sure that may be the first state on the committee that you visit. I hope that you'll come to Colorado and visit National Renewable Energy Laboratory and see the important work that they are doing there. And so please know that you have early invitation to visit NREL, and I would like your commitment to working with me to understand the work that's done and how it's a part of our all the above energy mix.
Yes, sir. Senator, I look forward to coming to visiting. I won't dwell on this, but you were very enlightening to me from the standpoint of what they do there. Those are obviously the types of technology, the applied research that can then be commercialized that I think we have a role to play and we should be engaging in. So I look forward to a long visit.
Obviously, some of the work they're doing at NREL deals with grid modernization efforts. The computers, the supercomputers that they have at NREL and the national laboratories across the country focus on grid modernization, energy efficiency. The Energy Systems Integration Facility, which is located at NREL, a research center that both private industry and the public sector is using to modernize the electrical grid, provides basically a central hub for integration of private and public research efforts on wind, solar, biofuels, transportation efforts. So, as Secretary, would you continue the work being done on grid modernization efforts?
Yes, sir. The two areas that NREL will have a role to play, I would suggest going forward, without having knowledge of the programmatic line items there, but obviously developing that next level of supercomputing as its impact upon the grid and hardening and protecting the grid. Both of those are going to play a very important role as we go forward at the Department of Energy.
Along with cybersecurity, I think that's very important,
Yes,
and I look forward to working with you on these issues critical to the energy future of this country. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Gardner. Senator Manchin.
Madam Chairman, thank you, and Governor, thank you for continuing to want to serve, and we hope that's the case. Let me just say that coming from an energy state, West Virginia, Texas, all of us who really have had some heavy lifting states over the years, take for granted the lights are going to come on every time we hit the switch. We take for granted that our air conditioning is going to work, our heat's going to work, our refrigerator is going to keep our food from perishing. Everything's going to work. We've taken that for granted. Unbelievable. I had a person one time say, Governor, I don't know why you all use coal in West Virginia. Why don't you use more electricity? Now, that tells you what we're dealing with. That really tells you the scope of what we're dealing with. And I want to put it in perspective because I'm on sitting where I sit and trying to defend basically an all-in energy policy. I'm for everything. I'm for all the wind, solar, renewables, and everything. But you have to be rational and practical. Where does our base load come from? And I talk about base load. People don't know what I'm talking about. I said just everything I talked about. Light come on when you want it. Your refrigerator works when you want it. You can wash your clothes when you want to. You've got to have something that will work 24/7. You've got to have base load. The only thing in this country gives you base load today is coal and nuclear. Gas is coming on as base load, but until we get the pipelines, you're not going to have everything you want. Maybe in Washington because of hydro from Canada. Other than that, a lot of us don't get it. And so I'm trying to look at a real rational position. So I said, here, and we're talking about all the cuts and everything, and I really appreciate your answers. I thought they were very good. And with that, you're going to look at whatever you have, whatever money you have to work with. All I'm asking for is proportionate of how you're going to spend in research and technology. And I would say this to you. The mix we have right now in energy, coal and natural gas, in 2015, 66% of the energy, produced 66% of our energy, coal and natural gas. Nuclear, 20%. Renewables, 13%. So now I'll tell you, in President Obama's budget for 2017, and they wonder why I have odds at this, 66% is supposed to come, energy is supposed to come from coal and gas. Research, he committed $600 million for research out of $4.5 billion. That's 13%. Nuclear produced 20%. It's allotted $994 million. That's 20% proportional. Renewables, 13%. He committed $2.9 billion, or 64% of our research dollars, and only get a return on 13% of the energy, even if it goes to 20 or 25, 75%, and it's not going to be a base load. The wind blows at night. You don't use your electricity. You don't usually wash your clothes at 2 o'clock in the morning. And we're just trying to make sure that we understand, until we get that new technology or the energy future, you better take care of what you got. So I would ask, basically, with this mix, can we look for more of a proportionate mix so we can do it better?
Yep. Senator, what you have my commitment to is also backed up by my record. And my record as the governor of Texas has been that individual who was not afraid to get outside of the box and to look at some things, to base your decisions on sound science. And interestingly with that, I think it's important for us to keep in mind that from time to time science gets it wrong. Again, we had a lot of people come and telling us in the early 2000s that we had found all the oil that we were going to find. And we found out that wasn't the case.
Yes.
And had we completely made all the changes in our in our operations, we would probably be in a bit of a sling right now. I'm committed to an all of the above policy with the knowledge and the history of being an individual that believes in finding more efficient, more effective, more positive impact on our environment technologies.
I think, if I can, just
Yes, sir.
real quickly, the only thing I'm saying is we get the living crap beat out of us doing heavy lifting and doing the dirty work. If you do the coal, which we do in West Virginia, we do the natural gas, and nobody likes it, but they sure as heck use it. Yeah. Okay, and that's all I hear about. And then they want us to make it cleaner, but they say we can't make it cleaner. Well, when you don't have any commitment from the federal government to do what they said they want to do and give us the money to find the next technology, the next research technology that we can get to that next level, don't continue to berate us. You're not going to do it any other way. You need us, you just don't like us. We'll do it better if you'll work with us.
Don't get me confused with the previous administration. So from the standpoint of...
Trust me, I won't.
From the standpoint of being an individual who has promoted those sources of energy that can drive an economy and at the same time help our environment. I have a record of doing that, Senator, and that you can expect, if I'm so fortunate as to be confirmed by this committee, that same commitment, but also that same action and activity.
I appreciate that. Look forward to working with you.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Senator Manchin. Senator Flake.
Thank you. Thank you, Governor Perry. It's been good to hear from you and meet in the office. And I just want to follow up on a conversation we had there as well. As you know, there are 4 power marketing administrations that fall under the purview of DOE. And I often hear from Arizona electric consumers that are frustrated with the Western Area Power Administration, or WAPA. A good number of WAPA customers in Arizona are rural co-ops and irrigation districts that really need to keep their electric rates low. They've been concerned with transparency at WAPA. That's the spending that's been going on and some of the unobligated trade balances, unobligated balances that they have, and why those haven't resulted in lowering of rates. Just yesterday, I sat down with WAPA Administrator Gabriel for an update on their unobligated balances, and the numerous internal audits to ensure fiscal responsibility. Can you commit to work with me to make sure that Arizona customers get the lowest rates possible from WAPA?
Senator, we will commit to work with you to make sure that the Department of Energy follows the statutes and the laws and the Constitution, and not go outside those bounds. And if you ever see the agency participating in something like that, I know I can expect a phone call from you.
All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. As you know, Arizona is home to the nation's largest nuclear plant. And so obviously the nuclear policies of the department are of interest to any of us in Arizona. The nuclear power industry needs a resolution to the long-term storage problem that we have. What will DOE do under your leadership to bring some kind of resolution to that issue?
Senator, as I've made in some earlier remarks, both to the ranking member and to the members as a whole, that the time of kicking the can down the road on dealing with this issue, my goal will be that those days are over, that we can have a thoughtful conversation, a productive conversation, conversation where that the citizens of your state and those that have these 35 different states that are repositories today, not by their desire, but by the inaction of the federal government over the course of the decades, that we can, in fact, number one, by making good decisions here, looking at alternatives, by making a real commitment to clean up the environment in these states and truly find both the interim and the long-term storage answers to this extremely difficult situation.
All right. Thank you. I'm encouraged to see that research is being done around the U.S. in terms of the future of nuclear energy, new technology, particularly small modular reactors. In what ways can DOE work with the private sector? I know there are companies, NuScale Power. Obviously, you need to work with the Nuclear Regulatory Commission on this. How can DOE further this research and speed the adoption of some of these new technologies?
And again, I think my historical engagement with universities as a governor, and obviously relationship with, I think there are 11 senators who were governors, and their counterparts in their states. Hopefully we can find not just the private sector and DOE, but also a third partner that I think is very important, and that's our universities and scientists and men and women that are there. So I find the entire concept of the small modular reactors as a fascinating, as one of the alternatives we need to have a conversation with. But again, I will go back to say that none of these are going to move forward with the expedition that we would like until we find the answer and are willing to address this issue of dealing with the waste that we have in the states today.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Flake. Senator Franken.
Governor,
Senator.
thank you so much for coming into my office. Did you enjoy meeting me?
I hope you were as much fun on that dais as you were on your couch.
Well,
may I rephrase that, sir?
please, please, please. Oh, my Lord. Oh, my Lord.
Well, I think we found our Saturday Night Live soundbite.
Let's move on. One of the fun things on the couch was when you said that the shale energy boom owed a lot to the Department of Energy. And this is something I think my colleagues on the other side have almost gotten sick of me saying. But you seem to, you'd make a great validator. And you will, and we talked about this, I know that you agree that the Department of Energy was an enormous factor in the shale boom. Is that right?
I would suggest to you that there were technologies that were moved forward at the DOE that both our universities and the private sector then took and implemented together that allowed for the shale revolution to occur. But there, you know, the private sector had a substantial amount to do with that. George Mitchell, who's a Texas geologist, was a great example of an individual who heard scientists, and I'm sure his private sector friends time after time say, you're wasting your time and wasting your money. But he believed in it. And I give as much credit to him as I do the DOE. But I think the DOE has a role to play.
Well, as a matter of fact, the vice president of his company, Dan Stewart, said this, and I quote, DOE started it and other people took the ball and ran with it. You cannot diminish DOE's involvement. And really the reason I bring this up, not just to lord that over my colleagues who doubted me, but also to just point to the importance of research from DOE in solving all these problems that we have. And that's why these reports, I hope these reports on cuts in DOE aren't true. Things in the new administration seem to be fluid, shall I say. I want to go to climate change. As we discussed in the office, I believe that climate change is an existential threat and one of the most serious challenges of our time. In your 2010 book, you claim, quote, we have been experiencing a cooling trend. Well, it was just announced yesterday. Senator Heinrich said that this is the hottest year on record. The year before, also the hottest year on record. The year before that, first time in 3 years in a row, been the hottest year on record. In 2014, you said, quote, I don't believe that we have the settled science by any sense of the imagination. Calling CO2 a pollutant is doing a disservice to the country, and I believe a disservice to the world. Now, I see in your testimony that your views have been evolving on this, and you note that man is responsible for some climate change. How much climate change do you think science shows is due to human activity?
Senator, far from me to be sitting before you today and claiming to be a climate scientist. I will not do that.
I don't think you're ever going to be a climate scientist, but you're going to be head of the Department of Energy.
That's correct. And I know how to hire a really good scientist.
Well, 97% of climate scientists say that this is real and is that we are going to be approaching at the end of the century 3.5 Celsius increases in temperature, which would be disastrous. And I don't want that for my grandchildren. And let me put that number, that 97%, in context. A recent survey found that only 95% of scientists are sure that cigarettes cause cancer. So it seems to me that science on climate change is pretty definitive. So I just don't want, and I know my time is out, I don't want this idea of the economy and addressing climate change are at odds at all. As you saw in your state, people stay in your communities that have wind. Those towers are big. They're tall. Young people, only young people go up those towers. And you keep young people in your community. Yes, and we owe it to, I don't know if you have grandchildren yet. I know your daughter.
A little early for that. Just married in October.
Yes, yes, too early. See, I'm not a mathematician. My time is over. It's gone. It's done. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Need a little levity every now and again. Let's go to Senator Risch for some more.
We're going to ignore that, Senator. Governor, thank you for being willing to do this. First of all, you earlier apologized for raiding for businesses in other states when you were governor. You know, there are four governors on this committee, 2 and 2. And in that regard, I would say you don't ever have to apologize for that. We have all sinned in that regard in our former lives, some quite successfully, I might add. So no apology is necessary. You know, arguably, you're taking over arguably the most complex and broad-reaching agency within the government. Now, you might say that DOE's maybe got a broader span in different ways. As far as reaching Americans' lives, this is probably as broad-reaching as it gets, and it is incredibly complex. Your soon-to-be predecessor was a nuclear physicist, as you know, and we actually got along with him quite well. He was very intimidating when he started talking about nuclear physics. But in any event, my contention would be you don't have to be a nuclear physicist to run this agency. As Senator Manchin adequately described what happens when you become governor, nobody hands you a manual. Your success or failure depends upon your own ability to manage an incredibly broad-reaching range of services and issues for the people of your state. And it all depends on the people that you bring around you, obviously, because you've got to have experts around you. And believe me, in this agency you're taking on, you're going to need lots and lots of experts to help you do that. We have, everybody's talked about their state, we have in Idaho the Idaho National Laboratory, which is the birthplace of nuclear energy in the world. The first light bulbs were lit by nuclear energy, were done so there at the lab. And it is today the lead laboratory on nuclear energy. And I got to have to tell you, after I met with you, I was really impressed with how you're getting your arms around. There's a lot of different laboratories in the country. Most Americans have no idea what they do or the complexity of them. And I was very impressed with the way that you're getting your arms around them. A couple of things that you and I talked about that I appreciate your commitment to, and that is also the INL, in addition to its nuclear mission, is now becoming one of the lead laboratories, and there'll probably be 3 of them altogether, dealing with this cybersecurity and control systems issue that is incredible vulnerability here in America. You and I talked about that a little bit. Can you tell me your thoughts on that publicly? We talked about it privately. I think you should have the ability to talk about this publicly.
Thank you, Senator, and thank you for relaying the interesting juxtaposition that governors have when it comes to managing kind of complex issues that they face. And again, I go back to, I think that is a very good prerequisite and foundation. Ernie Moniz and I are good friends. I mean, we've known each other, Bill Richardson. Interestingly, I think in the history of the agency, there have only been 2 nuclear physicists that were the heads of the agency. There's been a governor or 2. So the issue from my perspective is being able to manage and prioritize what is important and finding those individuals who are some of the best in the business. You may not be able to bring them into government, but you can draw them into the process. A great many times because of their patriotic commitment to this country. And so on the cybersecurity side, that will be my intention, is to go find men and women in the private sector, in our universities, at the DOE. And as you know, our national labs they're the repository of some of the extraordinary brilliance in the world. They truly are crown jewel of this country from intellectual and particularly a scientific standpoint. And putting together a team, obviously working with other agencies. DARPA is going to play an important role, I would suggest to you. There are many other areas, but to coordinate cross-agency, I think, Senator, is going to really be important as well. And to have the support not only of the administration, but of Congress and the private sector on what I consider to be one of the great challenges that we have in the short span, because this arena is going to change. It's going to change in a hurry. Just like the supercomputing side, and we've allowed ourselves to get a bit behind in supercomputing. In fact, that's one of the areas that I think dovetails in to the cybersecurity side, is our ability to move forward to that next generation of supercomputing, the exascale models that are going to be out there. So you will see the same commitment that I made, that I had, that we had a success in my home state, of going literally from zero to the manufacturing of vaccines for pandemic events. I mean, I know that we can do this, and I know we have the expertise. We need the management, we need the resources, but we can successfully put into place cybersecurity practices that not only secure our private conversations from that matter, but to the more important side of things as our electrical grid and our military capabilities.
Thank you. Well said, Governor. My time is up. I'm sorry we didn't get a chance to talk about the small modular reactor. I know you're a real fan of that. That's being developed at the INL, and also, of course, at the INL, we develop all the space batteries and that produce the space batteries that actually go out on these missions. We'll talk about that some more. My time's up. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. Senator King.
Governor, at the risk of beating the fraternal order of governors subject into the ground, I remember meeting you 16 years ago tomorrow on the steps of the Capitol, standing next to one another at George W. Bush's inauguration. So the amazing thing to me is that neither one of us have aged a day. Extraordinary. I also want to caution you that this is the only committee around here where you can use the word sequester and expect a positive response. Nowhere else do you get that.
Yes, sir.
People have talked about these cuts. You're going to be called upon to lead in the next several weeks and months. The cuts that are being proposed, if indeed the media reports of this morning are correct, are devastating, and they go to the heart of what we've been talking about today. I hope people that are proposing these cuts are watching this hearing, because they heard Senator Hoeven use the term technology really is the way forward. You've talked about it. We've talked about the role of the Department of Energy in fracking research, and just moments ago you were talking about advanced computing. That's one of the items on the cutting board, apparently, which is absolutely beyond me. Eliminate the Office of Electricity, Office of Electrical Efficiency and Renewable Energy, Office of Fossil Energy. This is absolutely nuts in terms of the future of energy in this country. It seems to me DOE has essentially two functions. One is the nuclear enterprise, which you've discussed. The other is research, and basic research that then can be taken by the private sector and turned into the revolutionary changes that are changing our society, whether it's in fracking or in renewables or offshore energy, whatever it is. And you're gonna have to really do some hard pushing back on this, because assuming this is true, I find it's almost self-parody to be cutting energy research at this moment in time. But will you commit to me that you're going to be lion-hearted in this endeavor to protect your agency, because they're cutting the legs out from under you?
Senator, I have a rather interesting background, not unlike yours, of defending budgets, both from those who are in the know and sometimes people who don't
hard for me to believe that the people that are recommending these cuts are in any kind of no.
I'll allow your statement to stand. My point is, I know what the Department of Energy should be good at. I have spent enough time making myself aware, both talking to individuals inside the agencies, individuals who have been there before.
I don't have to cut you off because the chair is so rigorous about our times, but I really hope you will be strong in this, and I think you've indicated that you will. It's an entirely different subject. We talked several times today about LNG exports. Here's what's of concern to me. We have now got the total production of natural gas in the country is about 75 BCF a day. We've already approved 14 BCF, which is about 20% of the total production for export. In the queue is 71% of production for export. If that happens, there is no way in the world, this Congress cannot repeal the law of supply and demand. There's no way in the world that that will not drastically and significantly affect domestic prices, which has been one of our advantages vis-a-vis the rest of the world in terms of bringing manufacturing back and sustaining our economy. The Natural Gas Act back in 1938 says that for the Department of Energy to issue a permit, it has to be in the public interest. My request of you is to be sure that the public interest definition includes effect on domestic prices. Will you give me that commitment?
Senator, what I will commit to is finding ways to make sure that we don't artificially affect supply and demand. What I will suggest to you is that there are decisions that have been made in Washington, D.C. that have artificially affected supply and demand, and it's been on the supply side. I would ask the EPA and the Department of Interior, and whether it's Congress on the tax and regulatory side that they can affect, to make sure that we have the ability to fill the supply, because the demand is going to be there. And if we produce it in America, it makes abundant good sense to me for us to sell it to the world.
Unless doing so significantly increases domestic prices, which is exactly what happened in Australia, where they are now exporting almost all of their natural gas, and their natural gas domestically, I think, tripled in price. That would be a disaster for the economy of this country.
And I totally understand that, but my point is that when we look at this entire issue globally, we need to make sure that we're not making decisions here that is affecting the ability to supply, so that you can keep the demand addressed and thoughtful in a fair way that does not drive up the cost, where a manufacturing base, for instance, of which we are trying to bring America back in a strong and powerful way, would be affected in a negative way.
Low-price natural gas is an advantage we have, I'd hate to lose. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Senator King. Portman.
Thank you. And Governor Perry, thank you for your willingness to step up and serve again in a different way, and to your family for the sacrifices that involves. I enjoyed our meeting. Apparently it wasn't as scintillating at the conference table here than as your one on the couch with my colleague from Minnesota. But it was interesting, and we talked about a number of topics. One was the importance to my state and to our nation of having a uranium enrichment capability. In Piketon, Ohio, we have a plant that produced enriched uranium until about 2000. At that point, it was shut down. It was a gaseous diffusion method. It's now being cleaned up. When President Obama ran in 2008, he promised to accelerate that cleanup. In fact, just the opposite has happened. Pretty much every year we've had to fight just to keep the cleanup in place. It's gone from a 2024 timeframe to a 2044 end date, costing taxpayers, by the way, billions more by stretching it out and not being more efficient about it. And I'm very disappointed in the Department of Energy for their inability to follow through on their commitments to the plant. And frankly, it's really difficult for people who work there. They just never know if their next paycheck is going to be there. And this usually happens around Christmas time, as it did in this past Christmas. So one question for you, would you be committed to looking at this cleanup effort in a more logical way, helping to ensure we have the funds necessary to be able to expedite that cleanup, which again
provides security to these families, but importantly, lowers the cost for the taxpayer by getting this cleanup done.
Senator, I will commit to you that I will become as educated on this issue as I can in the most expeditious way that I can manage it, and employ management skills and capabilities. I again, without knowing the deep details of this, but my instinct tells me that this is an issue of execution, of management,
Well, I thank you for that. And I'll put you on the spot here further. Chairman Moniz, when he went through his confirmation hearing, committed to come to the site. We never managed to work it out. I'd love for you to see this site. It's a couple thousand acres. As I told you, it has incredible infrastructure, electricity and water. It'd be a great site for a future plant, including a power plant, including a nuclear power plant. The community is very supportive. Would you commit to come out and to see this yourself, to see the huge investment that Department of Energy has made into this facility?
Senator, I will commit to that, and I will suggest that you know how to get a hold of me if I don't show up on a timely basis for you.
Great. Well, thank you. And then second, we started a new centrifuge technology project there a few years ago. We were excited about that. In late 2015, without any notice, the Department of Energy shut that down. Unfortunately, they spent, hundreds of millions of dollars of taxpayer money up to that point. Those centrifuges are still there. They're not spinning anymore. They're apparently going to be sent to the desert, which is an enormous waste of taxpayer money. We have no ability to enrich uranium in this country. We have to rely on foreigners at a time when we have an increased volatility globally, and at a time when, ironically, we're telling Iran they can go ahead and enrich uranium for their domestic purposes. We as Americans don't have the ability to do that. My question for you there is, would you also be willing to look into this issue? And I'm not going to ask you for a specific commitment today on restarting this, because I know you need to research it, but I hope that you will give this your personal attention and objective consideration, because it seems to me we need to have enrichment capability in this country. Do you have a response to that?
Senator, I will give it the appropriate and thorough study. In addition, I will say that the enrichment of uranium in the United States is a national security issue, and one that I take very seriously. I look forward to working with you to not only understand this issue better, but if it is concluded, as I suspect it will, that this is indeed a national security issue that needs to be addressed either by the United States Congress and or the administration, you will have a willing partner in making sure that the DOE does it in the most efficient, most effective, and most economically feasible way that it can.
Thank you, Governor. This is a national security issue. There's no question about it, not just being reliant on foreign countries, including Russia, for uranium, but also because we need lowly enriched uranium for tritium in the nuclear stockpile. And of course, we need to have enriched uranium for our nuclear navy. And I know we have stockpiles now, but we don't have the ability to be able to quickly be able to enrich. It probably takes a decade to get this back up and going if we shut it off altogether, and again, enormous cost to the taxpayers. Finally, just one last question. We talked a lot about energy efficiency in our meeting. I told you about the fact this committee overwhelmingly had voted out an energy efficiency bill equivalent of taking 22 million cars off the road by 2030. We also passed it in the entire Senate, 82 to 12, 82 to 15, as I recall. Both the ranking member and the chair have been at the forefront on this issue. I would like your commitment today that you'll work with us on energy efficiency and help us to get that legislation across the line.
Yes, sir. Use me as you see fit.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Portman. Senator Duckworth.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for being here, Governor Perry. I look forward to your visit to two of the DOE's crown jewels, Fermilab and Argonne National Laboratories in Illinois. Governor, while I served in Iraq, I risked life and limb, as did so many brave young Americans, protecting diesel fuel supply lines. I saw firsthand the painful price this nation pays because of our reliance on foreign oil. So for me, investment in renewable energy is not only about the environment, not only about jobs, not only about competing with China and other nations that are making huge investments in clean energy, it's also a very clear national security imperative for us. Under your leadership, Texas made impressive progress in wind energy production, but I do worry that you have made statements using federal government involvement to encourage investment in any energy sector. With the successes you've seen in wind energy, I know you must recognize that these gains could not have been made without federal support. Our nation's wind industry would not be where it is today without the federal government, and I want to replicate the success in wind energy that you saw in Texas under your leadership. I'd like to do that in Illinois and across the nation. Will you maintain the support programs at DOE that promote renewable energy programs that strive to move us forward and away from our heavy reliance on fossil fuels?
Senator, thank you. Just as an aside, I want to say thank you for your service.
Thank you.
There are few people in this room that have made the commitment to this country that you have. There are some in this audience that have. But we collectively thank you for your service. You and I had a pretty broad-ranging conversation about the alternative renewables that are out there, you know, the least of which is not wind, and my home state aggressively and very positively supported that. There are, I think, a role for the DOE as we go forward, continuing to find the technological advances, whether it's on turbines, whether it's on blade design, whether it's on some other aspect. One of the first Emerging Technology Fund grants that we made after I'd helped create that program was on nanophotonics and recruiting some top scientists in the world, Texas Tech University, on the solar side. My commitment will be to look at every program, Senator. I think you know my record of I'm a fiscal conservative, and I don't back away from that. I think that's a badge I wear with honor. But I do believe that there is a role for us to play, both at the state level and at the federal level, to continue to put forward, funded by our taxpayer dollars, technologies that can, in fact, make us more efficient, make us more economically viable, improve our quality of life. And that's my record. And you can't change the stripes on this zebra. I mean, it's just the way I am. It's what I believe in. The administration knew that when they asked me to serve in this role. And I am committed to the continuation of using these brilliant scientists, private sector, universities, in collaboration to finding the solutions to the challenges, whether it's on renewables or whether it's ways to use resources that we have in a more efficient, safe, effective manner.
Thank you. You've spoken quite proudly of our national laboratories, and both Fermilab and Argonne are major employers in Illinois. They also are developing next-generation battery storage, advanced supercomputers, and exploring even the smallest building blocks of matter. You and I spoke at length also about the need to develop ways to store, perhaps reuse nuclear fuel. I just popped out a little bit ago to go meet with the students from Zion, Benton, Illinois, Go Fighting Zeebies. They told me I needed to say that. Who are from a town that cannot develop valuable lakefront property because there is a decommissioned nuclear reactor there, and that storage, that nuclear fuel, spent fuel, has not, we've not been able to find a way to take care of it. And I just want to make sure that you're committed to supporting these national laboratories and the very important work that they do.
I won't burn your time.
I'm out of time anyway.
Time by reiterating my commitment to managing that issue. And I think I will suggest to you it's been both a political and a management challenge. And hopefully, as we go forward, we can stand together as a country and talk about a legacy that we finally made substantial progress in removing waste from your states to places both interim or long-term that address this challenge.
Thank you.
Senator.
Thank you, Senator Duckworth. We are finished our first round. We'll have an opportunity for another. I appreciate the fact, Governor, that you have been sitting for a considerable period of time. Hopefully, we will be able to move quickly through this second round and not put you through too much more if you've got the endurance.
I'm here at your service, ma'am.
That's what we love to hear. We appreciate that. Governor, I'm just looking through my morning clips and the front page of the Fairbanks Daily News Miner, where I went to high school. Frigid Fairbanks today. The Denali State Bank sign that has the temperatures, it's 52 below. That's the picture. So it's cold back home. And when it's cold, you need to stay warm. And when you need to stay warm, sometimes, again, it can be very costly to stay warm. And so when we talk about all of the above energy policies in Alaska, we really live it, and perhaps more so than others, because at times of the year like this, your life depends on your ability to keep warm. But it's not just the oil and the natural gas and the coal and the fossil fuels that we have. The people in Fairbanks don't have the benefit of natural gas. They are a community that right now is effectively relying on home heating fuel, so it's expensive for my sister to keep the house that I was raised in, to keep it warm during the wintertime. And so as we look to find solutions, one of the things that we're looking to in Alaska is the prospect, the ability to access our natural gas from this land, and to be able to access that for the benefit of Alaskans and really for the benefit of the country. So I look forward to your commitment to help us work to facilitate the natural gas pipeline. But we also have so much more. We've got the wind. Don't have a lot of solar right now. It's a little bit dark, but that changes very soon. But we have incredible opportunities. 24% of our energy produced in the state comes to us from hydropower. Amazing resource down in the southeastern part of the state. Unfortunately, hydropower isn't viewed as a renewable resource. I'd like to work to change that with you. But we also have 33,000 miles of coastline. That's a lot of coastline. That's a lot of water. That's tidal energy. That's marine hydrokinetic. If we can harness the power of the Yukon and the Kuskokwim, I mean, it is bountiful. We have the biomass potential. We have, again, pioneered in so many different ways. We want to be able to utilize microgrids, but right now the definition of microgrid says that you have to have the ability to connect and disconnect from your grid. Well, if you don't have a grid in the first place, then you don't count as that. So we need to work with you as the incoming secretary to make sure that we're not standing in the way, that our own federal government isn't standing in the way of this innovation coming from our national labs, that's coming from the innovators on the ground as we're working to help facilitate this. So we need you to help us cut through a lot of what has been put in place that hold back the innovation, that keep the people in Fairbanks right now that are trying to stay warm, and it's costing a pretty penny to do so, to give them the assurances that they've got options. So I look forward to working with you on some of those specifics. One of the things that we don't have in Alaska, as in all of the above state, we don't have any nuclear. We've got a small population, you know that. But the prospect for what small modular nuclear reactors, and Senator Risch almost got to his question here, and so I'd like to have you address that as you talk about the broader panoply of energy options. But the potential for small remote communities, or whether it is our military installations up there at Eielson, for instance, a good example, some of our forward operating base outposts. But as Senator Duckworth made the point, and I think appropriately so, reliance on at-risk fuel supplies can be life-threatening. So the potential that we have with micro and small modular reactors, including the more advanced reactors, I think hold great prospect for us. Can you speak to how you view the role for advanced nuclear and small modular reactors.
I'm not sure I can do it any more eloquently than you just have, Madam Chairwoman, but the point is, those are exactly the types of focus that the Department of Energy should be engaged with, should be funding. I will share with you that I will help you in any small or other way if there needs to be legislation that changes federal laws on the microgrid issue. I'll be more than happy to help you do that, because it makes abundant good sense that, again, this is that old classic of one size doesn't fit all, that it really hadn't thought through. Maybe a really great idea. My home state happens to not be attached to the federal grid either, and it works pretty well for us. But we're a diverse country. We've got a lot of different geography, we got different people, we got different regions, and to thoughtfully put into place energy policies that take into account that diversity is really important. So you have my commitment. Not only I'm obviously a very strong supporter of this new technology. Obviously, we want to look at it from a safety standpoint. We want to look at it from the standpoint of being able to secure it properly of these small modular nuclear reactors. But there are places. Senator Duckworth and I had that conversation, particularly from a military application to power those bases, of which you have a number of in your home state. May be a good starting point on those, and then plug them in, if you will, to the nearby neighborhoods and have that alternative form of energy that can, in fact, make it available and affordable.
Good, thank you. I know we said we're going to second round, but Senator Sanders hasn't had an opportunity to ask a question yet, so we will turn to him.
Thank you. Welcome, Governor. August 17th, 2011, CBS News, quote, Republican presidential candidate Rick Perry said Wednesday morning that he does not believe in global warming science and suggested it is grounded in scientists manipulating data for financial gain. He said the climate is changing, but it has been changing, quote, ever since the Earth was formed, end quote. Perry added that, quote, the issue of global warming has been politicized, end quote, and argued that America should not spend billions of dollars addressing, quote, a scientific theory that has not been proven, and from my perspective, Governor Perry's, is more and more being put into question, end of quote. That position is at variance with virtually the entire scientific community that has studied climate change. In fact, scientists that I hear from believe that climate change is the great planetary environmental crisis that we face, that we need to move forward aggressively to transform our energy system away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency and sustainable energy. Do you still hold the views that you expressed in 2011, number one? Number two, Governor, do you agree with those scientists that it is absolutely imperative that we transform our energy system away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency so that we can leave this planet in a way that is healthy and habitable for our kids and future generations?
Senator, I believe the climate's changing. I believe some of it's naturally occurring. I believe some of it is caused by man-made activity. The question is, how do we address it in a thoughtful way that doesn't compromise economic growth, that, you know, quite frankly, doesn't affect our energy affordability? Senator Murkowski talked about the individuals in her state.
Governor, I don't mean to be rude. You know, we just have a short period of time, and I apologize.
Yep.
But Senator Cantwell made, I think, an important point on this, and that is we are in danger of spending God knows how many billions of dollars to repair the damage done by climate change. Drought is becoming a major crisis, will impact agriculture in a very significant way. And basically what I'm asking you, let's get beyond the rhetoric. You don't have to agree with me. The scientists that I talk to, I think the majority of the scientists who study this issue feel that climate change is a global crisis. It's not a question of balancing this and a balance in that. It is a global crisis which requires massive cuts in carbon and the transformation of our energy system. How do you respond to that?
I like getting past the rhetoric, sir. Getting past the rhetoric is looking at the record.
No, but
Yes, sir, but I think it's important for us to talk about the 12th largest economy in the world while I was the governor, because you're asking me what am I going to do
I'm asking you,
economic
I'm asking
impact.
you if you agree with the scientific community that climate change is a crisis and that we need to transform our energy system to protect future generations.
And Senator, I will respond that I think that having an academic discussion, whether it's with scientists or whether it's with you, it is an interesting exercise. But do I have a record of affecting the climate in the world and in this country? And the answer is yes. When you lower carbon emissions by 17% and sulfur dioxide by 66%, and NOx by 58%, 56%. Don't you think that is a good thing?
Well, I think what would be a better thing is for you to say right now that you recognize that we have a global crisis and that the United States of America should help lead the world, working with China, Russia, countries around the world to transform our energy system. Let me change subjects, another area. As you mentioned in your opening remarks, more than 60% of DOE budget deals with nuclear energy. I think many Americans are concerned about President-elect Trump's remarks regarding allowing or supporting more countries around the world to get nuclear weapons. The United States, under Democratic and Republican administrations for many, many decades now, has been strong in saying that we want not to be testing nuclear weapons. Can you give us some assurance that you are within the mainstream saying that testing of nuclear weapons is a dangerous idea?
Senator, what I can tell you is I think it's really important for the United States to have a nuclear arsenal that is modern, that is safe, and, you know, at this particular point in time, I think if we had General Klotz here, he would tell you that that's probably the case, that he's
Question was
comfortable.
dealing with nuclear testing.
Yes, sir.
Will you
that's
support the
where
ban on nuclear testing?
That's where I was getting to, is that obviously the scientists that we have at the DOE, the scientists in the private sector, I'm going to rely upon their observations of whether there is clear technical ability to use the technology that we have today. I think anyone would be of the opinion that if we don't ever have to test another nuclear weapon, that would be a good thing, not just for the United States, but for the world.
Thank you. Senator Lee.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Thanks so much, Governor Perry, for being with us.
Yes, sir.
And thanks for your willingness to be considered for this position. I want to talk to you about a couple of things that relate to the department that you'll be heading if you're confirmed. One relates to uranium, something that Senator Barrasso mentioned a little bit earlier. I always worry whenever government gets involved in any marketplace, especially if it gets involved and distorts the marketplace. In some instances, it gets involved in a way that picks winners and losers, often favoring large, wealthy corporations over newer startups who, by their very nature, tend to have a harder time gaining access to capital, whether it's from government or private sector sources. In other instances, government gets involved and occupies a market, takes over the whole market. One of those areas relates to the Department of Energy's excess uranium inventory management plan. The USEC Privatization Act prohibits the Department of Energy from selling or transferring excess uranium if the sale or transfer will harm the domestic uranium industry. And you can understand why that policy might be in place. It's an industry that, if destroyed, especially if destroyed by government action, might cause harm down the road when government resources, government stockpiles dry up. Yet between 2009 and 2011, the Department of Energy transferred more uranium than it was allowed to transfer under the 2008 plan. And in 2012, the GAO found that the Department of Energy violated federal law when it received no compensation for a large transfer of uranium, which cost taxpayers nearly $200 million. Furthermore, the Department of Energy's 2013 excess uranium inventory management plan eliminated all annual caps on the transfer of excess uranium. This has introduced a tremendous amount of uncertainty and hazard within the domestic uranium industry. So if you're confirmed to this position, will you have, you're going to have the opportunity after being confirmed to update the Department of Energy's management plan with regard to excess uranium. Can you assure us that your plan will take into account the existence of a commercial domestic uranium market and one that honors the market and then stick to the plan thereafter?
Senator Lee, thank you. With you and Senator Brasso, both helped bring me to understand this issue substantially better than before I came into your offices. And thank you for that. And as I further become up to speed, if you will, knowledgeable of it, but a broad look at this, you correctly identified this as a budgetary management issue at the Department of Energy. And again, I just like to remind folks that for 14 years I've delivered a budget to the Texas legislature. We negotiated those budgets, we prioritized, and that's my commitment to you, Senator, is to manage this agency, understanding how the budgetary process works, working with the Office of the OMB, working with members of this committee, the Finance Committee, to find the dollars to accomplish the goals that we have at the Department of Energy, this obviously being one. Law clearly states that this does not, cannot, should not happen.
Thank you.
To manipulate the uranium supplies where it has a negative effect. I will follow the laws of this country.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I've got a few seconds left, and I want to get out one more point. The Nuclear Waste Policy Act creates an obligation that is statutory and contractual. It obligates the Department of Energy to dispose of nuclear fuel. Currently, we've got about 75,000 tons of nuclear waste stored at on-site facilities across the country. The Department of Energy started developing a waste disposal site at Yucca Mountain that was halted by the Obama administration in 2010. But in the meantime, the government's breach in this regard, its failure to finish this and to provide disposal options at Yucca, have cost taxpayers $5.3 billion in damages, and those damages could mount up to $24 billion in the next few years. I'd like to know what you plan to do about that and to move forward with Yucca.
Yes, sir. Senator, not addressing the issue of Yucca directly. I want to ask for the privilege to really come up to speed from the standpoint of both the DOE and the legal aspects of this. But I have a history, and as I said to this committee earlier, of solving problems, of being a manager, and look at some alternatives maybe outside of what we have historically looked at before. But my commitment is, and my hope is we have as a legacy of us, this committee, this Congress, this administration, for Americans, that we finally, after 30 years of kicking the can down the road, whether it's for whatever reason, but start seeing clear, definitive evidence of addressing this issue and moving to temporary and/or permanent siting of this nuclear waste.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator Cantwell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Perry, keeping on the same theme, wanted to talk about Hanford, and thank you for mentioning it in your statement and testimony. Obviously, you know a little bit now about the history of the Hanford site and its producing of plutonium and the history it's had for our nation. And obviously, we now want to see a commitment, as we ask for every energy secretary, for cleaning up the site and moving forward on waste treatment plant construction. So are you committed to funding Hanford cleanup at what it takes and getting the waste treatment plant finished?
Senator, I am committed to working with you and prioritizing what is one of the most dangerous, most polluted sites that we have in this country. The commitment that this country makes, not me singularly, not the DOE singularly, but what the country's commitment to do this has been a failure from my perspective. And I will work with you on a very, very diligent basis, up to and including coming to Hanford and walking that site with you, sitting down with men and women of the labor unions that are there to hear their concerns, and so that they know that there is a Secretary of Energy, that there is an administration that is committed to making true movement on what I consider to be one of the real failures that this country has had dealing with our nuclear waste.
It's definitely a very complex problem, and thanks for recognizing the fact that it is arguably one of the most technical cleanup projects in the entire world. Will you work with the state on what is called the tri-party agreement between the federal government and the state on cleanup?
Senator, one of my goals, and I hope one of my strong suits, is going to be to reach out to governors, reach out to members of the legislature who have these challenges. Obviously, working with this committee to find the collaborations, and it's going to take a collaboration. We understand that. This is going to be the private sector, it's going to be the state, it's going to be the federal government working together to make this happen. And doing it in as streamlined and efficient way as we can. You have my commitment, yes.
Thank you. And on this larger issue, because the committee dealt with nuclear waste conversations in the last Congress, and a couple of things that, in fact, Secretary Moniz just published an article yesterday that was in Bloomberg, kind of capsulizing the various points of what's happened on this issue. Two of those I wanted to get your comment on. First of all, the Blue Ribbon Commission that was formed, some by our former chair, Senator Domenici, and many of our other colleagues, spent time on this issue and basically said one of the ideas would be to separate defense from commercial waste, because you might be able to get it done in a more rapid time period. And secondly, it basically advocated for a consensus process. The notion that we have spent time and money trying to do something that there are great objections to in stymieing the process, their advocacy was looking for a process where states and those who be holding material would be done in a consensus fashion. And do you support that concept of the Blue Ribbon Commission recommendations?
Senator, until I have the opportunity to sit and truly go over it, I think it would be a bit unfair for me to tell you absolutely without having read it at length. But as a general rule and a general observation of what you talked about, working with the states, having been in public service now for 30 plus years, finding consensus is what I did. It makes ultimate good sense to do that. Understanding that from time to time, sometimes consensus just hadn't it's really hard to reach. And I know the complexities of this issue relatively well, not as well as I will as we go forward.
Well,
So,
it's a
but-
very big part of the budget, as I mentioned, 10 to 15%, and just on the Hanford site. So I think, notwithstanding the comments, my colleague from Utah, I think the committee, and at least in the Senate approach, has been with our colleague, Senator Alexander from Tennessee, and colleague from California, and the legislation they've endorsed as appropriators on the other side of this equation, has been to say, let's look at discussions with states, whether it's New Mexico or whether it's Texas or whether it's some who are on their way or planning various activities of trying to plan for low-level waste. Not the whole equation, but is that a faster way to get solutions, get sites cleaned up, get processes moving than, contracted battles forever? So the Blue Ribbon Commission really was a bipartisan group of experts, Brent Scowcroft, I'm trying to think of Lee Hamilton, a whole variety of people who made these recommendations. And so
Senator, I will be open to having those conversations and finding the solutions to the challenge.
And just one easy one, I know since you guys have that don't mix with Texas kind of attitude when it comes to the grid, will you make sure that BPA is protected and not privatized or ridiculous concepts of?
You and I have had that conversation that
Our grid is.
Again, I really look forward to coming out there, not just to see Hanford, but also the Bonneville Power Agency and what they're doing.
The
and
labs.
Talking to the, yes.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, one thing I wanted to say about Hanford, you also support, this is a long conversation, the workers and making sure that the workers are safe during the cleanup of Hanford waste.
Maybe one of our most important duties, making sure that those men and women who are working on a very dangerous site have the appropriate protection that
Thank
they
you.
deserve and they've earned.
Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Heinrich.
Governor, I want to follow up on some of the conversations you had with Senator Cantwell on cleanup. You're inheriting the cleanup of the legacy waste from the entire Cold War. At Los Alamos, for example, it will take about $4 billion over the next few decades to finish that effort. That effort's not as technically complicated, I think, as the Hanford site, but it requires resources. I think if the budget is flat, you'll have your hands full on this front. But we've heard about a potential hiring freeze. I have an article this morning from The Hill talking about rolling substantial portions of the DOE budget back to 2008 levels. How are you, and this is the Trump transition team article, how are you going to meet DOE's commitments to states like New Mexico, to states like Washington, who have consent agreements on these cleanup efforts, if we have a dramatically smaller DOE budget?
Yes, sir. Senator, over the 14 years, well, actually, I'll even expand it a little bit, over the 30 years that I was either a state representative, an appropriator, I was an agency head for 8 years, and then I was the governor of 14 years, a little bit of light gov in there as well. We had budgets that did this. They went up and they went down. We had some really tough budgets in the state of Texas in 1985 and 1987 in particular. I was an appropriator during that period of time. As an agency head, I got to deal with what I was given. I obviously went over and negotiated as good and as hard as I could. And then as the governor of the state, it wasn't always blue skies and smooth sailing. In 2003, we showed up with a $10 billion budget shortfall in our state. So I've had this experience of dealing with budget shortfalls. Obviously been blessed with some times when we had, I'm not sure I ever ran into a time when somebody said you got all the money ever now. But my history is I know how to manage, I know how to prioritize, and I will make that commitment to you, Senator, is that managing and prioritizing that budget inside the agency will be very high for me, and I hope it gives some comfort that, this is not my first rodeo when it comes to dealing with budget shortfalls.
Related to that, Governor, and I want to thank you for your comments on that, I also want to ask you about the waste isolation pilot plant, the WIP facility in Carlsbad, New Mexico. You may know that WIP is the nation's only deep geologic repository for transuranic waste from the weapons program, and it's a very important part of the cleanup effort. WIP was closed for nearly 3 years as a result of 2 serious accidents. We just reopened it this last month. The investigations into those incidents cited lack of proper management and oversight as one of the root causes. I want to ask you to assure me, but more importantly, to assure the people of New Mexico that the safe operation and proper maintenance of WIP will be a budget priority and also a management priority.
Senator, I hope, again, that my history of managing a rather large entity, I'm not going to sit here in front of you and tell you we got everything right every day in the state of Texas. By and large, it was a very well-managed place. When there were mistakes made, I held people accountable because the people of the state of Texas were holding me accountable. I consider my accountability not only be to this administration, to this committee, to this Congress, but also to the people of this country and to the people of your state. I want my neighbors in New Mexico, or our farmer neighbors in New Mexico, to know that there is a Secretary of Energy who not only will come to that site and to hear their concerns, whether they're employees of WIP or whether they're people who live around the communities there, that every reasonable, every thoughtful effort will be made to make sure that not only does that site stay open because of the powerful economic impact that it has on your state, but also that the people who work there are going to be safe. And you've got my commitment to that, sir.
That's exactly what I want to hear, and I very much appreciate your willingness to spend the first few months of your tenure getting to places like the lab and the WIP facility. I think that means a great deal to the community.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Governor.
Thank you. I think as with the nominee that we had for Secretary of Interior, these folks are going to be doing a lot of traveling in the first 6 months, which we appreciate. We appreciate. Senator Cortez Masto.
Thank you, Governor. I know in our meeting you committed to make to Nevada as well, so I appreciate that. Staying on the line of questioning here, because you're going to have a lot on your plate when it comes to the cleanup and disposal of high-level and low-level nuclear waste. One of the DOE sites for cleanup is the Nevada National Security Site, which was established in 1950 to perform nuclear weapons testing activities. And there are right now 3 main areas of focus for the DOE for cleanup on the site, which is groundwater contamination cleanup, low-level radioactive waste disposal cleanup, and environmental monitoring and reporting. And I just want to know, are you committed to continuing the cleanup of the Nevada National Security Site?
Of course, Senator, and as I shared with Governor Sandoval and Senator Heller, I hope we can, again, as the chairman mentioned, I'm going to be traveling a lot, and I hope that I can, and I won't be coming to Nevada just to see my daughter. Might do that as an aside, but
Governor.
But we will be there to go to that site to take a good appraisal of it and continue to prioritize these cleanups. I think everyone on the committee will agree that one of the main priorities, obviously keeping that arsenal safe, modernizing that arsenal, but prioritizing the funding and managing that funding in an appropriate way to clean up these websites is going to be very, very high on the priority list.
Thank you, Governor. And then based on the conversation and what I'm hearing recently, I'm going to try one more time, support storing nuclear waste at Yucca Mountain.
Senator, I'm not going to have a definitive answer that, absolutely no way in hell. I heard that from Senator Heller, Governor Sandoval, and you pretty loud and clear. But I think what you need to hear from me is I'm going to be looking at the alternative ways to be able to address this issue. We have not for 30 years been able to address it. And if there are legitimate alternatives that keep the people of Nevada happy, well, that's even better. But I think I will not sit here in front of you in a committee hearing and tell you absolutely no way is Nevada going to be the recipient of high-level waste. But what I will tell you is that we'll work with you every day. And as I think a number of the other senators have said, there are some other places in this country that are willing to have this conversation. And I think we need to have an open conversation. I was for bringing high-level waste into the state of Texas while I was the governor. I seemed to manage to get reelected every time I ran. So the issue is one that if we're wise, if we're thoughtful, if we're respectful, that we use good science, we can find a solution to this.
Thank you. And another reason why I would love for you to come to Nevada, most people don't realize there are 29 operating geothermal power plants in Nevada right now, employing potentially 6,375 individuals, both directly and indirectly, with jobs. And we've been able to do so and create these job-producing clean energy power plants with the support of DOE's Geothermal Technologies Office. And what I'd like to know is, will you commit to pushing for adequate funding for the Geothermal Technology Office to continue researching geothermal energy innovations?
All the above, Senator. I think, all of the above means all of the above. And
That's a yes.
I think that you and I will probably have a more pointed conversation is adequate, the word adequate. And as I shared in my remarks earlier, prioritization, good management of budgets can go a long way.
Good. There is another project that's on the horizon called the Forge Lab project, and Fallon is a potential host for it. I would ask for your commitment and support in considering it as well, continuing to support those types of projects.
As I become more knowledgeable of that operation there, my son-in-law has been at Fallon a few times, so he can easily point it out to me.
Thank you, Governor.
Thank you. Senator Franken.
Thank you. Governor, as you know, 2/3 of the Department of Energy budget is dedicated toward our nuclear weapons program. Now, the United States already has the world's most formidable nuclear arsenal. We currently maintain a force of approximately 4,000 nuclear weapons, a number that is much bigger than we need to maintain an effective deterrent. And yet we are on track to spend more than $1 trillion over the next 3 decades to sustain, replace, and refurbish delivery systems, warheads, and their supporting infrastructure. This plan was launched in a different budget era, and I can tell you that numerous very distinguished national security experts believe that this investment will significantly hamper the ability of the United States to respond to conventional and unconventional threats that we may face. If you are confirmed, would you be open to altering the pace and scope of the current modernization plans if it is clear that significant taxpayer savings can be achieved while still meeting the deterrent requirements?
Senator, I will address your remarks by saying that I understand my role as being the Secretary of Energy, being the manager of that agency. From my perspective, the issues that you bring forward, which are legitimate issues for us to talk about as a country, but those will lie in your purview and the Congress, making the decisions, I would suggest, relative to the numbers, partly by the funding stream and what have you. So I will be following the statutes and the laws that the United States Congress put in place relative to those issues.
Well, you may have influence in this debate, so just let me alert you to this. These are weapons we're never going to use, we hope, and $1 trillion over 30 years.
Yes, sir. Real money.
Yeah. While we're on the topic of nuclear weapons, I want to turn to the Iran deal. As you know, your predecessor, Dr. Moniz, played a key part in negotiating the Iran deal and its nuclear limits, which have blocked Iran's potential to amass nuclear material for a nuclear weapon. In a January 2nd, 2017 letter to President-elect Trump, 37 of the nation's top scientists wrote that in sum, the JCPOA has dramatically reduced the risk that Iran could suddenly produce significant quantities of nuclear weapons material. They concluded that their technical judgment is that the multilateral JCPOA provides a strong bulwark against an Iranian nuclear weapons program, unquote, and urged Trump, quote, to preserve this critical U.S. strategic asset. Specifically, as a result of the Iran deal, Iran's uranium stockpile was cut by 97% to 300 kilograms, a fraction of the amount needed for a single nuclear weapon. Further enrichment, Iran reduced its installed centrifuges by 2/3. Iran's nuclear enrichment levels now capped at 3.67%, way below weapons grade. The core of the Iraq reactor was destroyed, and Iran will redesign the facility so that it will not produce weapons grade plutonium. Given the non-proliferation benefits of the JCPOA, as Secretary of Energy, I hope that you'll make a real effort to talk to the people in our national security community who support the deal. Hope you'll speak with the Israeli military and intelligence community, because I think they will tell you that this is not just in American national interest, but also in the interest of Israeli national security. And I would urge you to advise the President-elect to not get out of this deal. I think that would be bad for our country. The other P5+1 countries are going to be staying in it anyway. As Energy Secretary, you'll have the President's ear on this, so I just want to make a pitch to you.
Yes, sir.
To keep us in the Iran deal.
Yes, sir. Just as a response, sir, I think non-proliferation is a good thing. In a general sense, I have not had a classified briefing yet. Until I am confirmed, and I certainly would ask each of you for your support on that, but until I'm confirmed and I haven't had that classified briefing, I'm not going to be as knowledgeable about this Iranian deal with specificity. But to say that if DOE has a role, and there may be a role that we have to play, and again, I haven't had that classified briefing, to make sure that the Iranians are living up. I think all of us can say that we want the Iranians to live up to the deal. So, message delivered, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Governor.
Senator King.
Thank you. On that point, I appreciate your comments, and I think one of the important roles that the Department of Energy has is monitoring and working with the intelligence agencies to be sure that Iran is living up to the deal, and I know that's a very important responsibility. In terms of the arrangement itself, I view it as the fact that Iran has gotten their benefits from the deal, which were the release of the sanctions. Now, the burdens, which are a 10-year or longer tamping down of their centrifuges, enrichment and all of that. We would only be hurting ourselves if we terminated the deal, because they would have gotten what they wanted, and then we would have released them from the restrictions of the agreement. Two things, very short, and all you need to do is say yes twice. One of them is, as all of my colleagues have.
Sounds like a wedding.
It was yes, exactly. In your case, it appears to have worked out beautifully.
Very good.
Is to invite you to Maine, particularly the University of Maine. Our university has a relationship, as you mentioned, you talked about Texas Tech, to the Department of Energy labs, particularly Oak Ridge. In fact, Senator Collins and I are going to be there next week, a week from tomorrow, with people from Oak Ridge. It's an amazing engineering school and engineering facility, offshore wind, testing facility, nanotechnology, 3D printing, and I think you would find it very illuminating. So to have you come up, and if you want to come like June or July, then February, I'll accept that.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Yes, sir. I'll be there, Senator.
That was the right answer. The second issue, I just want to commend to you. We talked a lot today about energy sources. One of the most interesting developments in energy in the last few years is what's called distributed energy, which is homes making their own energy, storage, demand response, energy efficiency. And by the way, the cheapest, cleanest kilowatt hour of all is the one we don't use. And so there's enormous potential there. The department has been doing research, and I just hope you will continue to pay attention to that, as part of the all of the above strategy includes distributed energy and energy that's produced at the homeowner level or at the factory level, but also things like efficiency, storage, demand response.
Yes, sir. And Senator, when you talk about the connectivity issue and the distributive issue, are you talking about issues like smart meters?
Exactly.
Yes, sir.
Enormous potential there.
Yes, sir. We had a program in my home state of which we helped fund and gave incentives to the installation of those, and it's been quite successful from my memory. So those are the types of thoughtful engagement, the type of, frankly, investment that I've historically been very supportive of.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank
Thank you very much, Governor, by the way, for your testimony and your patience over a long morning. Thank you.
Thank you. And we do appreciate your endurance, your patience. We're just visiting here about how long these nominations hearings go, but they're longest for those that are sitting on that side of the table, and we appreciate it. I have no further questions. Senator Cantwell had a clarification that she wanted to make. So,
I
sir.
am going to file a couple of things for the record, if we could get your response on smart buildings and energy efficiency. These have been very, very successful programs that have saved millions of dollars for those who own the building facilities and for homeowners, and we definitely want to get some response on that. But I was out while you were dialoguing with Senator Stabenow. I was running back and forth between the Treasury nominee hearing and this hearing. And I think you gave her a commitment on the Office of Electricity, but I just want to make sure, given all the discussion we've had this morning in the press, that you understand that office's capabilities on storage, on cyber, on transforming the grid, on all of those things, and are committed to that office.
Most important aspects of the agency, Senator. Cyber, I hope I've made a deep impact on the committee about finding the solutions, particularly on the cyber side. There's some work that we're going to be able to do on the supercomputing side as well. So
The Office of Electricity you support wholeheartedly, I guess that's it.
whatever the name of the committee, or the name of the agency needs to be. Sometimes, there's renaming, and I don't intend to do that off the top of my head. But to those functions that are under that agency today, there is great support in general for that. As we dive into this agency even more, obviously working with your office and the rest of the committee, I look forward to lots of successes. And Senator, if I might, Just thank you for the opportunity to be here. You said something about the length of these things, but this is important work. This is important business, and this is an important agency. And if I'm so fortunate as to be confirmed, and I hope I could get the support of each and every one of these senators as we go forward. But I am committed to working with you, to being a partner in this process, and to truly making America being an energy independent place that has extraordinary future for our children, for our country, for our environment, and in turn, the world.
Well said. Thank you, Governor Perry. We appreciate, again, the time that you've given us today, the testimony that you have placed before the record, your willingness to answer the questions of virtually every member on the committee. I think we only had 2 members that were not able to be in attendance today. We will allow for questions to be submitted to the record. That deadline for committee members is close of business today. We would certainly encourage submission prior to that, if at all possible. I will also ask unanimous consent to submit several letters of support for Governor Perry for the record of this hearing. I would ask that members submit any of their own to our Chief Clerk, Darla Ripchensky. But again, Governor, thank you. And I'd also like to thank your family that has been there, not only supporting you, behind you in this hearing, but as they have supported you throughout your professional career and the leadership that you provided to the people of the state of Texas, and now your willingness to step forward. I also want to acknowledge the sacrifice and the service of Mr. Luttrell. We appreciate that. We certainly honor you and all those who have served us. But with that, again, thank you, and the committee stands adjourned.
Let our leader say. Right.
We needed that point. Seriously.
Yeah, that was like the perfect thing to
Yeah.
we got like really serious.
Yeah.
It was very clear.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So that seamless string of 1,000 details you see not in the face of the bankers, not in the face of the GSA, you see it in the face of the waiters, of the doorman, of the waitresses, the housekeepers, of the little people who talking about before, we're all sitting here benefiting from the selfless effort of the only men in the world who could sustain an unbelievable attack on system, capitalism, on everything. And the ones who got here are the development, arguably. The ones who are not here are working 3 shifts. So it's to them that this tribute is, and it's to them and to you that I introduce to you, President-elect of the United States of America.
Where is this? This is a gorgeous one. A total genius. On their budget and ahead of schedule. Well, I want to thank everybody for being here. Sit down. Just have a sit down. Hello, Helen. Hello. I see all. Such a nice person. Nobody knows that Alice is actually a very nice person, right? How do you know that? First of all, I have to thank my wife. She has put up with more.
It's great to be here, and thank you all for your support. And tomorrow I'm starting the work. I had a lot of responsibility, a lot to take care of, and to make America great again.
She didn't want to sit with you, Phil. So anyway, I want to thank you all. Honey, sit right here, Phil. She believes in barriers. We don't. That's great. So I want to thank everybody. We have such great support in this room. And we have, I think, Mitch is here. Mitch McConnell. Area is highly. We're sitting next to the ambassador. Cory St. James, congratulations. Congratulations. Which knows this? It's done very well. Good. Thank you. John Cornyn's here, Senator. Where is John? Thank you, John. John's covered my office for years, and always raising money for the Senate. And he raised, a lot. In a way of asking for a lot. I believe he knows, right? Once a year I get home, and I'd say, oh no, it's John. And then walk in, hi, Mr. John. I said, okay, John, so how much is it? Could you go $250? I said, what do you mean? But for years I didn't know. Then when I ran, he wasn't going to do, but these are, that's the way politics is. But it's good to meet him. He's a great guy. And I think we're going to have a fantastic relationship, and I appreciate it. Thanks for being here. I want to come back to share Cory. Where's Cory? Cory's here. Cory, hi, Cory. I saw you at taxes publicly because we want to do this one first. We're going to work on healthcare. It's very complicated stuff. And I said, I know that. But the problem is I gave an interview about 5 or 6 days before the Wall Street Journal. So I said, absolutely, I think you're right. I'm not going to talk about taxes. And the following morning, this was an evening call. The following morning, it came out, Trump on taxes, talking about that. I said, believe it or not, that interview was given 5 days. But Paul Ryan's done a great job. And Kevin, during the heat of battle, was there. I appreciate it, Kevin. Thank you very much. Steve Scalise. Steve. Hi, Steve. Great. All my friends. Patrick McHenry. Patrick, what a name. That is the name of a true patriot. Where's Patrick? I see somebody in the audience, too, who's become very famous lately. The legendary Jeff Sessions. So is it easier than you thought, Jeff? Huh? He said, what the hell did I do this for, right? They love you. You have done so well, so amazingly well. And, you know, it was so tough on Jeff at the beginning. And then all of a sudden they said, man, this guy's smart. I know how smart he is. He's a great guy. He will be one of the outstanding stars of this country. And he is legit all the way. So, Jeff, thank you. And so many others. Kathy McMorris Rogers. Where's Kathy? Where's Kathy? She's around here somewhere. So we also have Steve Mnuchin is right now getting grilled. He's doing a good job. You know this, right? He's out there doing what you were doing 4 days ago. But he's doing a fantastic job. And I will say, all of our votes, I think Nikki's here someplace, Nikki Haley, a lot of the candidates here. Good job, great job. When I said they're all going to speak to China, and when I said they're all going to speak to everybody, we're going to have, I think we're going to do a lot of great things, Nikki, right? So thank you for going through this. You did a fantastic job. Thank you. Tom Price. It was so nice to Tom, right? Where's Tom? Wanted to end his career so fast. And then they found out, man, he's smart. We have a lot of smart people. I tell you what, one thing we've learned, we have by far the highest IQ of any cabinet ever seen. Betsy DeVore, where's Betsy? Where's Betsy? She was terrific. Education, very, very easy, right? It's we have a little different take on it, right, Betsy? A little take. It's called "We Want Our Children Educated." That's our take. So when